Chapter 1031. Gu Mingming sat beside Natalie. Although he was an elder, it was still inconvenient for Leah to take care of some matters. So even though Leah didn't want Gu Mingming to be tired, Gu Mingming still insisted on taking care of Natalie herself. Taking off the torn beast's skin, Gu Mingming personally cleaned Natalie's wounds bit by bit. Because of Snake's battle experience, Gu Mingming could tell at a glance that the wounds on Natalie's body had been left by a wolf's claws. But which wolf? It went without saying. Natalie's skin was very fair because she had not been exposed to the sun all year round. Even though she had gone out for walks after reconciling with Peter, and her complexion was much better than before, it was still an unhealthy whiteness. But now, she was as white as snow without a single speck of dust. Gu Mingming frowned and covered Natalie with the beast's skin. She then turned back to Leah. I have seen the wounds too. Although there are many of them, none of them are fatal. These wounds would not even be worth mentioning if they were on a male. But Natalie is a female, and one with a weak constitution who had just given birth. So what might not be a big problem for others might be fatal for her. Leah nodded. That's right. Firstly, the wounds are healing too slowly. Secondly, she has lost too much blood. Gu Mingming turned back to look at Natalie. She held her hand gently. It was not easy for you and Peter to get together. You won't give up on him just like that, right? You still have 6 newborn babies. Don't you want to see them grow up day by day and evolve again and again? Natalie, stay strong. You must hang in there, understand? Elvis hugged Gu Mingming. Because of them, you haven't had a good night's sleep for a few days. Since you are fine now, go and rest. Gu Mingming was really exhausted, so she didn't say anything else. She obediently returned to the small bed prepared for Qi Xian, and fell into a deep sleep. By the time she woke up, it was already nighttime with a bright moon and few stars. Peter had already woken up. Disregarding the injuries on his body, he stayed by Natalie's side in a daze. He held Natalie's hand tightly with both hands, as if afraid that Natalie would disappear the moment he let go. Gu Mingming walked to Natalie's side and used the back of her hand to touch Natalie's forehead. She frowned and said, Leah, go fetch a basin of water and prepare 2 soft beast skins for me. Leah did not ask why and did as he was told. Gu Mingming washed the beast's skin and placed it on Natalie's forehead. She sighed and said, she is running a fever. It should be caused by an external wound. If only there were antibiotics, but this place. Leah kissed Gu Mingming's forehead and smoothed her brows. Leave it to me, don't worry. Yes. Gu Mingming nodded her head. Although Leah usually ignored the external injuries of males, he was a witch doctor after all. He knew many herbs that Gu Mingming did not know and some common knowledge in the beast world that Gu Mingming did not understand. She chuckled. Having a witch doctor by her side really made her feel at ease. Leah was busy taking care of Natalie and Peter. Gu Mingming had wanted to share some of the burden, and so volunteered to cook. But in the end, Leah didn't even let her move a finger. Chapter 1032. Apart from cooking, Leah spent most of his time taking care of Natalie. Peter's regenerative abilities were extremely strong, and his external injuries healed within a few days. However, he still looked very haggard because the person he was worried about was still unconscious. Natalie's face was still pale, but her lips had regained some color. Leah had treated her wounds very well, and it was no longer inflamed. But the healing process was very slow. The dry season was gradually approaching. Elvis and Leah would not allow Gu Mingming to continue staying in the stray beast camp. There was no other reason. There was no water source here. They had to either return to Sadr or Saint Nazaire. They had to set off immediately to reach their destination before the water source dried up. Natalie's injuries were not suitable for long journeys, and she definitely could not follow Gu Mingming. But Peter was no longer suitable to stay here as the king of the stray beasts. Gu Mingming could not stop worrying. In the end, after much coaxing and pestering, she decided to leave 3 days later. And just as Gu Mingming was about to leave, Natalie woke up. Heaving a sigh of relief, Gu Mingming felt as though a huge weight had been lifted off her shoulders. It seemed that ever since she snatched Qi Xian back from Cole's hands, everything had been progressing in the right direction. Peter carefully pulled Natalie into his arms. It was the first time in so many days that anyone could hear him breathing. Leah, prepare something easy to digest. Let's have lunch before we set off. Leah chuckled. From the moment he saw Natalie wake up, he had already guessed that their departure time would be delayed. But luckily, they would only set off after lunch. He had initially thought that Gu Mengmeng would request to stay until tomorrow. That she was willing to leave in the afternoon was already better than he had expected. Leah prepared the food very quickly. When the piping hot sweet potato paste was served, Peter automatically transformed into a leather chair and propped himself up behind Natalie. He allowed her to lean against his chest with all her strength, not allowing her to exert even the slightest bit of strength. Taking the stone bowl and spoon from Lee's hands, Peter fed Natalie with his back to Leah. But Gu Mengmeng interfered and brushed aside the food Peter was about to send into Natalie's mouth. She looked up at Peter's displeased gaze without the slightest hint of fear, and just chuckled. You are not in a position to look at me like that now. Peter frowned but did not retort. Instead he said, Thank you for saving Natalie. I will definitely repay this favor. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and lifted a corner of the beast's skin covering Natalie's body with one slender hand. A lifelike black wolf on her chest appeared before her eyes. Gu Mengmeng pointed at the black wolf's face and said, I'm talking about this matter. Natalie looked at Gu Mengmeng. Peter was stunned and could not react for a long while. Natalie has the mark of a black wolf? Had he been so focused on Natalie's face that he hadn't noticed the mark on her body? Or did he realize it, but he didn't have enough brain cells to think about it? He was only thinking about whether she was still alive, so he ignored the changes in her body and himself? Peter stared at Natalie's heart in disbelief for a long time. There was his mark there. He could not be mistaken. That black wolf was him. It was actually on her chest. Digression. Chapter 1033. The stone bowl in his hand fell to the ground with a clattering sound, causing Peter's heart to tremble. The king of the stray beasts, who had been wandering around the borders of hell, with only one hand clutching tightly onto the dead tree outside of hell, was actually crying. The bloodshot veins in his widened eyes had yet to recede, but the soybean-sized teardrops continued to fall, one by one. Natalie was still weak, but she had a gratified smile on her face. She moved her head slightly and glanced sideways at Peter. Silly boy, isn't this a good thing? Why are you crying? I'm not crying. Peter hurriedly wiped away his tears, then kissed Natalie deeply. After a long while, he said in a trembling voice, The thing that I didn't even dare to dream of has actually come true. I am your partner now. I can stay by your side to take care of you and the children. Yeah, you are my partner, my only partner, my most beloved partner. The partner who will always be by my side. Natalie gently caressed the side of Peter's face, her smile exceptionally gentle. But how can it be? Peter was extremely confused. He had never heard of stray beasts being able to mate again in the beast world. Natalie and Gu Mengmeng exchanged a smile, a tacit understanding between females. For some reason, Peter couldn't control the corners of his lips. As long as Natalie smiled, he wanted to smile along with her. Even if he didn't know why she was smiling, as long as she was smiling, it was something worthy of his happiness. Tell me, huh? Peter gently hooked Natalie's chin, coaxing her gently. Natalie looked at Gu Mengmeng and Gu Mengmeng nodded. Natalie then said, This is the method that the great messenger requested from the beast deity. The process is very difficult and requires you to have great power and an unwavering love for me. It is a gamble with a slim chance of survival, but for the sake of us being together in the future, I still decided to take the gamble. I'm sorry for pushing you into such a painful situation and letting you suffer like that. Peter held Natalie's hand. No, you did the right thing. As long as I can be with you, I can endure any pain. Natalie smiled happily, then slowly continued. At the beginning of the rainy season, the great messenger came to see me. She asked me if I was willing to mate with you again and give the children a healthy family. After all, if you don't get rid of your stray beast identity, our children will be stray beasts too. For the sake of the child, for the sake of you and me. Peter tightened his grip on Natalie's hand and brought it to his lips to kiss it in support. Natalie's smile was filled with relief as she said, To reverse the mating contract, You have to burn all the filthy blood of the stray beasts in your body and reconstruct all your flesh and bones. It was a very painful process. If one was not strong enough, they would not be able to endure it. However, even if you were a peak level 5 orc, your chances of success were only 30%. Because in order to cleanse the impurities in your blood, only my blood can be used. During the reconstruction process, you will fall into madness because of the pain, and you will have the most primitive desire for my blood. So if you love me less, you will not be able to control yourself and directly bite my neck to suck my blood. Chapter 1034. Natalie patted Peter to comfort him. She chuckled. Didn't we succeed now? So don't be afraid. Everything is fine now. Peter frowned. He still looked at Natalie, his heart aching for her. She was covered in wounds and had only woken up after being unconscious for so many days. It was all because of him. So this is the reason why I have been so bloodthirsty and violent recently? Peter asked. Natalie nodded. The key to activating this reverse mating contract is for me to love you and bear your children. So, thinking about it carefully, Peter's violent temper had indeed started after the birth of the 6 little ones. It was just that it was not obvious at the start and he could still suppress it. But ever since he accompanied Gu Mengmeng to retrieve the soul of the forest, and was affected by the white fog, his bloodthirsty emotions started to get out of control. Peter frowned. He looked at Gu Mengmeng. So when I begged you to take Natalie away, you asked me to ask her? Gu Mengmeng nodded. Yet it was expected that you would beg me like this. Because Leah had told me before that the reason why he wanted Elvis and I to mate first was because he needed someone who was capable and absolutely trustworthy. Someone who could protect me and bring me away if he lost control. Elvis also said something similar. I think all males have the same thought process. So I taught Natalie how to deal with it beforehand. Ha, television dramas do not lie to me. Natalie also smiled. That's right. I used the 7-word mantra that the great messenger taught me to tame you. The 7-word mantra? Peter was confused. Elvis and Leah exchanged glances before looking at Gu Mengmeng. Natalie then looked at Gu Mengmeng. Great messenger, this, can I say it? Gu Mengmeng felt a little awkward. She tugged at Natalie's hand. You are Elvis's mother beast, which means you are my elder. You addressing me as great messenger makes me feel a little awkward. Why don't you call me Mengmeng like Elvis? No way. Elvis did not wait for Natalie to speak before rejecting her firmly. Mengmeng is my exclusive title. If you want to snatch it, you have to defeat me first. Peter tilted his head to look at Natalie gently. Do you like this title? I'll help you snatch it back. Gu Mengmeng face-bombed. The beast world was indeed full of weirdos. What was there to fight over? He waved his hand and said, How about you call me Little Gu? Natalie kept sneaking glances at Elvis's face. Seeing that he did not object, she smiled softly and said, All right, let's call him Xiao Gu. Since the 2 females had made up their minds, Elvis and Peter no longer had an excuse to fight, and could only give up. Xiao Gu, can you tell them the 7 syllables mantra? Is it possible that it won't work if I tell you? Natalie asked hesitantly. Gu Mengmeng smiled. Don't worry, so what if they know? As long as they love us, they can't do anything to the 7 syllables incantation. Natalie thought it made sense. She chuckled and said, Makes sense. Chapter 1035. With Gu Mengmeng's permission, Natalie stopped hiding and said, The 7-word mantra, as the name suggests, only has 7 words. First cry, second make a fuss, and third hang yourself. Peter was taken aback. So you hit the wall, Natalie nodded. That's right. I was tricking you that day. Peter couldn't bear to be so harsh towards his own female, and could only turn to glare at Gu Mengmeng. But Gu Mengmeng shrugged. That's right, I specially came to watch the show that day. Ew. Peter was suddenly speechless. Gu Mengmeng giggled. You are no longer a stray beast. Is it all right to glare at me like that? My father only has me as his precious daughter. He doesn't even bear to scold me or glare at me. Aren't you afraid that if he gets angry? MMM? Gu Mengmeng didn't elaborate further, but just glanced at Natalie. Peter instantly admitted defeat. He couldn't afford to offend this in-law, Gu Mingming laughed heartily and threw herself into Elvis's arms. "Hubby, your father is such a coward." Elvis also snorted in agreement. He recalled how arrogant Peter was in the past, like a god controlling their lives and deaths, coldly watching as the brothers killed each other. But now he was acting so cowardly. Actually, Elvis now really had a higher opinion of Peter. Males had never been afraid of fighting fiercely. But to reign in his vicious aura and admit defeat for a female was the proudest thing for a male in the beast world. Outside, he was an untamed wolf, but in front of his own female, he could only be a cowardly husky. Peter was like that, and so was Elvis. For his own female, they could risk their lives and be shameless. But understanding was one thing, but it didn't stop him from laughing along with Gu Mingming. After laughing enough, Gu Mingming straightened her back. Peter is no longer a stray beast. Even a 5th-level orc might not be suitable to stay here. Moreover, it would not be good for the wolf cubs to be educated. But Natalie's health is not suitable for long journeys. Why don't you go to Zacharias? Qixin and Kanwu are there, so you can take care of each other. Natalie nodded in agreement, and the case was settled. After lunch, the group split up. Natalie and Peter brought the 6 little buns to Zacharias, while Gu Mingming, Elvis and Leah brought Hutta and Jiaoyu back to Sauter. Actually, this place was closer to St. Nazaire, but Gu Mingming was concerned about the little cub in Sandy's tummy. After all, it was her first child and Gu Mingming still hoped that she could rush back in time to accompany her. Sandy is so timid. If she is here, she will feel more at ease. Moreover, Gu Mingming had already promised her. She did not wish to lose her trust in her only best friend. After walking for 3.5 days, when Gu Mingming once again stood at the entrance of Sauter, Oakley was still there with a group of elders to welcome her. But this time, apart from the elder, there were a few other beastmen. They looked unfamiliar, but they all seemed to have extraordinary strength. They were at least rank 3 beastmen. Gu Mingming did not say anything. At least to outsiders, Oakley was still the city lord of Sauter, and she had to give him some face. Without stopping, Gu Mingming directly entered the tribe and headed straight for Sandy's little stone house. Sandy's tummy was already very big, much bigger than when Gu Mingming gave birth to Hutta and his brothers. As a result, it was rather inconvenient for her to move around. She swayed 3 steps for every step she took, like a roly-poly doll. Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. My babies have been saying that there's a lot of content recently, and I'm so depressed. Chapter 1036. Seeing that Gu Mingming had arrived, Sandy's entire being brightened up. She was beaming from afar and waved at Gu Mingming with all her might. Gu Mingming was afraid that she would sprain her waist if she kept waving her arms. So she jogged over to Sandy and pulled down her waving little hands. "You are going to be a mother soon. Yet you are still so rash. Can't you spare a thought for my godson?" Sandy hugged Gu Mingming for a long while before saying in a coquettish tone, "I thought you would not be able to make it back in time. I have been worried for a few days." Gu Mingming smiled. "It is my godson's birth after all. How can I not come back for such a big event?" Bode had been standing beside Sandy the whole time. He was extremely nervous, but he was already used to Sandy throwing him to the back of her mind the moment Gu Mingming appeared. Now he did not even feel a sense of loss. Haha, getting used to it is really a scary thing. Gu Mingming comforted Sandy for a long while, and told her many new and interesting things that were not too exciting. She only left in the evening and instructed Colin and Bode to immediately look for Gu Mingming if Sandy showed any signs of giving birth. After all, Leah was the best witch doctor. Even if he did not come in, he could guard the door. After leaving Sandy's place, Gu Mingming did not return to the stone castle. Instead, she went to the meeting hall. Oakley seemed to have expected that Gu Mingming would come to look for him. Hence, he stood guard at the door and looked like he was waiting for her arrival. Gu Mingming's sense of smell was very sensitive, and she could smell coals sent on the chair. Hence, she did not sit on it. Instead, she used a tree branch to pick up the beast's skin and threw it directly into the fire basin to burn. Elvis and Leah were gratified by Gu Mingming's actions. They disliked the smell of other males on her more than anyone else. Oakley also understood Gu Mingming's motive. Hence, he did not say anything and just quietly took a new piece of firefox beast skin from the side and handed it to Leah. Leah caressed the beast skin and smiled. Top quality goods. As he spoke, Leah placed the firefox skin on the stone chair. It was Gu Mingming's first time seeing a firefox beast skin. The color was not the usual orange red, but a real fiery red. The texture was firm and the fur was fine. To a person like Gu Mingming who was obsessed with fur, this firefox skin was much more pleasing to her than the tiger skin. Gu Mingming turned and sat on the stone chair. She looked at Oakley. Before she could say anything, Oakley said, "The drought season is approaching and there is a shortage of water resources." The surrounding tribes all came to discuss whether they could imitate Saint Nazir's method of handling the situation, letting the tribes which doctor arrange for water to come to Sauter to tide over the dry season. I thought that since it was a rule set by the great emissary, there shouldn't be any problems. So after slightly modifying the minor details, I agreed to it. Or I tian I long, or after the experience of King. After the changes? I. Or he I or after. Or. Chapter 1037. An important friend. The smile on Oakley's face did not change at all. It was just faint, but it revealed a sense of alienation. Gu Mingming suddenly felt a sense of helplessness. Perhaps this was where she was not as good as Cole. She would never learn how to control a person's heart. No matter how much she wanted him to stay, she would eventually lose this friend. Today, the leaders of the surrounding 16 tribes came with me to welcome the great messenger. In exchange for a water source, they will submit their tribes to Sauter and become the great messenger's subsidiary tribes. Every year, after the rainy season ends, they will offer 20 pieces of top-notch beast skin and 20 large beasts during winter. Oakley explained the situation calmly. Gu Mingming chuckled. A monarchy? A weak tribe would offer tributes to a stronger tribe in exchange for protection. Oakley, you're so comfortable being the city lord. You're about to become a local tyrant. Oakley chuckled and lowered his head humbly. Then he stood up straight and said, "The reason why Sauter is in such a situation today is naturally because of the great messenger uncle's protection. But more importantly, it is because of my planning and management. I am worthy of being the city lord. I am worthy of being the city lord, and I am worthy of being the great messenger." Gu Mingming was taken aback. She clearly did not expect Oakley to say something like that. She thought that he would at least hope to get along well with her on the surface. Oakley did not hesitate at all. He continued, "Anyway, the great messenger has no intention to unify the beast world. So why can't you grant me my wish? I will protect you and help you solve all your troubles. I just want a position that you don't care for. Why can't you give it to me?" The beast world had its own survival rules. Every tribe had their own independent, or even opposing rules. Every tribe also had their own habits. There was even a food chain between the predator and the prey. Unify? That was something that was impossible to achieve. Moreover, Gu Mingming actually liked the way the beast world was now, living in a relaxed and comfortable manner with the tribe as a unit. She did not know how the other tribes were like. But at least Saint Nazir used to have a beautiful life other than the annoying Nina. Gu Mingming did not want to forcefully shatter this beautiful life. She hoped to protect the way the beast world should be. But Oakley? After staring at Oakley for a long time, Gu Mingming asked calmly, "Oakley, are we not going back?" Oakley chuckled, tilted his head and asked softly, "Lord Emissary, you are the one who has abandoned me. Where do you want me to go?" "I didn't." Gu Mingming blurted out. Oakley said, "When the great messenger left with the people of Saint Nazir, but left Barit and me behind, didn't she already abandon us? Or, in the eyes of the great emissary, that kind of degree is not considered abandonment?" Gu Mingming was speechless. The decision back then was correct in the grand scheme of things, but it was ultimately a disappointment to Oakley and Barit. Oakley's tone was not sharp, it was even very calm. He said, "Lord Emissary need not be upset. I have no intention of blaming you. Your decision is correct. It is the best decision for the tribe. Oakley did not reprimand you for anything, he only rearranged his position. This position was not that of a friend. Chapter 1038. Oakley lowered his head and said, "We'll talk about it when the time comes." Gu Mingming did not force him. She just stood up and walked out. When she passed by Oakley, she stopped in her tracks and kept silent for a moment before saying, "I only hope that you don't do anything that you will regret." Oakley didn't reply and Elvis carried Gu Mingming away. Time passed quickly and on the 5th day, Colin rushed into the stone castle, saying that Sandy had a stomachache and was about to give birth. Gu Mingming let Elvis carry her over without a second word. When they reached the outside of the stone house, they heard Sandy screaming her name at the top of her lungs. "Gu Mingming! Gu Mingming! Is she here?" Gu Mingming didn't care about anything else and directly pushed the door open. She held onto Sandy's hand and said, "I'm here, I'm here." Sandy's forehead was full of sweat as she held onto Gu Mingming's hand and said with a sobbing tone, "Pain. I'm in so much pain." Gu Mingming pulled Bode over and stuffed his claw into Sandy's hands. "It's this idiot who caused you so much pain. Bite him when you can't take it anymore. Bite off this claw and I'll give you the other." Sandy shook her head and said, "I'll give you the other." Sandy held onto Bode's arm with both hands and nodded at Gu Mingming solemnly. Gu Mingming had experience in giving birth, but she didn't have any experience in delivering a baby. Thinking about it, when she was giving birth, Leah was the one holding her head and Elvis was the one delivering the baby. Should she call Elvis in? But it didn't seem suitable. Bode's heart ached to see Sandy in so much pain, but he still had to lick the baby's placenta. Looking around frantically, Bode called out, "Colin." Colin had just entered with a basin of hot water when he heard Bode's call. He hurried over and asked, "What's the matter?" Bode grabbed Colin's hand and handed it to Sandy. He then looked at Colin and said, "You take my place this time. When Sandy gives birth to your baby, I'll return you a claw." Colin was dumbfounded, and before he could understand what was going on, Sandy bit down on him. It was so painful that Colin howled, "Roar!" Elvis and Leah, who were at the door, were shocked. Why was it that all hairy people gave birth to children by females, but Sandy's family gave birth to males? Gu Mingming's heart ached for Sandy. She washed a small piece of beast skin, and then sat on the bed, hugging Sandy's head. She used hot water to wipe her face and comforted her. "Sandy, adjust your breathing, don't hold your breath." In Sandy's eyes, Gu Mingming was the main pillar of support. She was flustered and helpless and did not know what to do, so she did whatever Gu Mingming said. "Adri, wash the hide." Gu Mingming threw the beast skin in her hand to Sandy's other bear partner. When Sandy gave birth, Adali was also running around in a panic. Hearing Gu Mingming's instructions, he started to work like a robot. He took turns to wash the 3 pieces of beast skin, and passed it to Gu Mingming after he was done. Then, he took over the one in Gu Mingming's hand and started to wash it again. Because he was too nervous, a few pieces of the animal's skin had been washed away. He had never been afraid of being cut open, but now his hands were trembling. Gu Mingming grabbed the beast skin and wiped Sandy's face while shouting, "What the hell are you all panicking for? I'm guarding here. What are you all afraid of? Calm down." Chapter 1039. Sandy gave birth to 3 leopard cubs this time. They were about the same size as when Hutta and the rest were born, but Sandy's physique was not as good as Gu Mingming's, so it took more effort to give birth than Gu Mingming. But Sandy was an orc, so her recovery ability was much stronger. So when Gu Mingming placed Sandy, who was exhausted after giving birth, down and brought Colin, whose hands were covered in blood, out of the house, Elvis and Leah were looking at her with a snicker. Gu Mingming was also extremely tired. Sandy was the one giving birth, but why did she feel that she was the one who had been exerting herself? She leaned into Elvis's arms, exhausted, and pointed at Colin. "Leah, apply some ointment on him. He's a scapegoat." Leah was already prepared, so he calmly applied medicine on Colin's wound. Then he teased, "Elvis and I were listening at the door just now. If not for the fact that you are a female, I would have thought that Sandy gave birth to your cub." Colin's expression turned serious. Gu Mingming was listless in Elvis's arms. She felt even more tired than when she gave birth to the 4 cubs when she accompanied Sandy. She pointed at Colin. "It's all because the males in Sandy's family are so useless. They only know how to panic when something happens. TSK. Colin was the strongest among the males in Sandy's family. He was too embarrassed to retort after Gu Mingming's disdain. He just lowered his head and said, "I'll work harder in the future." Gu Mingming waved her hands. "It's useless to make up for congenital deficiencies. Go back and tell Bode not to just take care of the young one, but to arrange for people to take care of Sandy for me. If I, Sandy, suffer any grievances during her confinement period, I'll break all 4 of his claws." Colin shrank back and replied, "Got it." After Leah bandaged Colin, he followed Gu Mingming back to the stone castle. Gu Mingming was also extremely tired after a day at Sandy's. She fell asleep not long after she went to bed. The next day, Colin came to invite Gu Mingming early in the morning, saying that Sandy was looking for her. Gu Mingming did not ask what was the matter. She just washed her face and went over. The 3 leopard cubs squeezed into Sandy's arms and whimpered. Sandy was glowing with motherly instincts. As he had often helped Gu Mingming take care of the 4 little ones, he could easily take care of his own children, and was not flustered. Seeing Gu Mingming, Sandy raised her hand and said, "Gu Mingming, come quickly." Gu Mingming held Sandy's hand and sat beside her. She reached out her hand and gently stroked the little leopard, the corners of her lips curling up unknowingly. He then turned back and stared at Hutta and Jiaoyu bitterly, saying, "My son used to be this adorable too." Hutta remained calm and shook his head helplessly. Jiaoyu's mouth twitched as he sprawled on Gu Mingming's knees. "Mum, are you despising me now?" Gu Mingming sighed and pushed him. "You are not suitable to act cute now. Even your uncle is cuter than you." Jiaoyu held his chest with one hand and pretended to be hit by an arrow as he fell backwards onto the ground. "Mother, you hurt my heart too much." Sandy chuckled at Jiaoyu's teasing. "Don't be sad. Mother-in-law thinks you are cute. You are very, very cute." Jiaoyu immediately stood up and tilted his head at Sandy with a smile. "I knew mother-in-law treats me the best." Gu Mingming smiled and did not say a word. Chapter 1040. Gu Mingming nodded. "Is it about the naming?" "Yeah." Sandy's eyes were sparkling. She really liked the names of Hutta and his brothers. Although they were meaningless words in the beast language, she really liked them. They had a unique style that she could never think of. Joseph Johnny Yogner. Gu Mingming announced the names that she had long thought of. Sandy was a little disappointed. She thought they would be like Hutta and his brothers, those names that had no special meaning but were very unique. Gu Mingming saw the struggle on Sandy's face. "What's wrong? You don't like them?" Gu Mingming had specially discussed with Leah. These names had special meanings in the beast world. Moreover, the first word was the same, so it was obvious that they were from the same family. Sandy shook her head. "It's not that I don't like them. It's just that I thought they would be names like Hutta and his brothers, nice and special." Gu Mingming smiled. "When the 3 little ones grow up, if they also like Hutta and his brothers' names, they can go and fight with them. If they win, they can snatch their names." Sandy patted the 3 little ones' heads and said, "Did you hear that? Your godmother taught you to be a brave child. You have to fight for what you like." Gu Mingming burst out laughing. Sandy was no longer just her best friend, right? She was at the level of a brainless fan. No matter what she did, Sandy could always come up with a good reason. Actually, Gu Mingming was just saying it casually to tease the children. Joseph Johann Jogner. Sandy repeated the 3 names with a smile. Her eyes were filled with gentleness. Gu Mingming nodded. "Yeah, Leah said it means happiness, bravery, and wisdom." Sandy nodded in agreement. She then tugged at Gu Mingming's hand. "Thank you. Is there a need for thanks between us?" Gu Mingming held Sandy's hand in return and said, "Rest well and recuperate your body. We will return to St. Nazaire after the dry season ends." Sandy nodded. She lay back on the bed. She was still too weak after giving birth. Just sitting for a while was already very tiring. Gu Mingming played with the little leopard for a while more before returning to her stone castle. The dry season did not affect Sauter much. Although there was only one well, and even if they kept drawing water every day, the supply was still limited. But Gu Mingming's status was special, so naturally, she would not be deprived of water. And because Sandy had a different relationship with Gu Mengmeng, Oakley took extra care of her. Every day after Leah fetched water for Gu Mengmeng, Colin would fetch water for Sandy, followed by the other females in the tribe. The pregnant female would be the third to fetch water, followed by the females that had given birth to males, according to the number of cubs they had, followed by the normal females according to their family's power. After all the females in the tribe had taken their water, it was the turn of the other tribes allied with Sodder to take their turn. Oakley had arranged everything neatly. Gu Mengmeng leaned against the window, her gaze a little dazed. Leah stood outside the window and brought a small cup of water to Gu Mengmeng's mouth. Gu Mengmeng drank a mouthful and said, "Don't you think this dry season is too peaceful?" Leah chuckled. "Isn't peace good?" Chapter 1041. Gu Mengmeng supported herself with her elbows and stood up. Then, she flipped over and sat on the windowsill, leaving her legs hanging casually outside the bed. Leaning her head against the side of the window, she said, "Saint Nazir's well also provides water to the other tribes, but they are not submitting to us but giving it to us for free. With you personally in charge of the situation, there have been so many filthy things. I don't believe that your disciple Oakley knows how to mediate better than you as his master." Leah chuckled without saying a word. How could he not notice the strangeness in this? It was just that he had promised Gu Mengmeng not to hide anything from her. So even though he knew something was wrong, he did not investigate, and even forced himself not to guess and piece together the truth. Because once he thought it through, not telling Gu Mengmeng would be considered as lying. But he did not want Gu Mengmeng to be embroiled in those troublesome matters, so he could only be prepared to strike after the fact. Anyway, their Gu Mengmeng was extremely powerful, and with Elvis, the black-faced great guardian, no one could cause any trouble. So, as long as no one was plotting against his Gu Mengmeng, he could pretend he did not see anything. Gu Mengmeng continued leaning against the window. "It's too calm, so calm that it's strange. I keep feeling that a storm is brewing." The moon was already full for the second time. Unknowingly, Gu Mengmeng had returned to Sodder for more than a month. Everything had been unbelievably peaceful for the past month. Every morning, Gu Mengmeng would go to Sandy's place to play with the little leopards. The little ones were very close to Gu Mengmeng, and each of them was chubby and adorable. Sandy's body was also recovering well. Every day, she would share with Gu Mengmeng what adorable yet speechless actions the little ones had done. At noon, Elvis would bring Gu Mengmeng back to the stone castle, while Leah would definitely have lunch waiting for her. This was clearly the peaceful life that she had been dreaming of, but for the past month, she had been getting more and more fearful day by day. She kept feeling that something was brewing, little by little, like a snowflake rolling down from the top of a snowy mountain. By the time you discovered it, it would have become an unbearable avalanche that you could not avoid in time. There was always a sense of imminent danger, as if a hand was strangling Gu Mengmeng's throat, making her feel extremely uneasy. The dry season had already entered the second half, which was also the most torturous stage. In the early stages, they could rely on drinking more water in advance to last a while, and then rely on drinking the blood of wild beasts to last a while longer. But now, even the beasts had no blood left. Sodder's well became more and more popular, and the number of people queuing up for water increased. Oakley had no choice but to arrange for people to fetch water 24/7. But even so, the supply was still falling short of the demand. Greed is the most fundamental bad habit of humans. If the whole world had no water to drink, they would suffer, but there was nothing they could do except endure. And when the whole world has no water, but you have water, you are destined to bear the jealousy and hatred of the whole world. In the past, Sodder's source of life was hidden and outsiders did not know about it at all. But when Oakley announced this resource, so what if it was the messenger's tribe? When the well in Saint Nazir was first dug, how many people did not hesitate to offend the messenger of the beast deity and steal openly and covertly just for water? In the end, Gu Mengmeng had to open up the water source so that everyone could queue up for water. Although the queue was longer, it was not a big problem as it was relatively fair. But Oakley, the water source was only supplied to the 16 surrounding tribes that had surrendered. Chapter 1042. Finally, on a hot and stuffy night, Gu Mengmeng was woken up by the noises of fighting. When she opened her eyes, she realized that Elvis was already in a battle-ready state. Leah was guarding the entrance of the stone castle, with Huda and Jiaoyu beside him. Elvis stood a step in front of Gu Mengmeng, carefully guarding against all movements in the surroundings. What's going on? Gu Mengmeng lowered her voice to an extremely low level. Everything here gave off a feeling that made one tremble with fear, and one could not help but feel oppressed. Elvis turned around and smiled at Gu Mengmeng. It's nothing, you can sleep. Gu Mengmeng sat up, not knowing whether to laugh or cry at Elvis's words. This atmosphere is like a graveyard. Who can still sleep? What's going on? Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng into his arms. There should be enemies invading, but it's very strange. Gu Mengmeng frowned. Invading? Stray beasts? Elvis shook his head. I'm not sure yet. Gu Mengmeng took a deep breath. Let's go to Sandy's place. Elvis did not say much and just followed her instructions. Gu Mengmeng was already standing at the peak of the beast world. No enemy could possibly hurt her. But if they made use of the people she cared about, it would be a different story. Leah was right about one thing. It was better to protect one's weak spot behind one's back. When Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng out, Leah brought Huda and Jiaoyu along with him. And when they reached Sandy's house, Gu Mengmeng's heart froze. Sandy hugged Lu Xiao in her arms and curled up in a corner. Beside her was Bode, who was covered in blood and holding on to his last breath, protecting her and the children. The other partners had already been beaten back to their original forms. They were piled up at the entrance, covered in blood. And above these corpses sat a person, Cole. Without a word, Gu Mengmeng rushed to Sandy's side to protect her. Then, she glared at Cole with her guard up. Leah. Leah understood and brought Huda and Jiaoyu to Sandy's side. Then he said, You two protect your mother-in-law and brothers well. Huda nodded and did not speak. Jiaoyu narrowed his eyes and glanced at Cole, who was like a god of death, but did not say a word. It wasn't that he didn't understand, but with his and Huda's current status, if they insisted on standing out, they would only be burdens. What Leah wanted them to do was to stay with Sandy and not run around, so that they could concentrate on protecting her if a fight broke out. Jiaoyu was a child that Leah had personally taught, so Leah was very assured of him. Although he would usually say something that would drive people crazy, he was still very reliable when it came to critical moments. Hence, he didn't waste any more time explaining. He just crouched down and started to treat Bode's injuries. Gu Mengmeng surveyed her surroundings. There was no one else but Cole. Only then did she relax a little. Taking 2 steps forward, Gu Mengmeng laughed out of anger. She looked up at Cole and said, You should know that my family and friends are all my weaknesses. If you control them well, you can threaten me and make it difficult for me to take a single step. But if you really hurt them, I will go crazy, so crazy that you will die without a burial. Chapter 1043. Beautiful? Ha, alright then you can enjoy it. With that, Gu Mengmeng charged towards Cole. She raised her hand to her ear and turned it into a claw, as if she was aiming at Cole's neck and ready to snap it. Cole didn't dodge or panic. He just sat there calmly. Qi Xian has a bewitching spell on him that is connected to me. If I die, he will die. With that, Gu Mengmeng's fingers were already on Cole's Adam's apple. She just needed to use a little more strength to crush it. Cole's eyes reflected the color of blood. He was evil and arrogant. His lips curled up slightly, as if he didn't have the slightest sense of danger of losing his life. When I cast the bewitching spell on Sandy, I knew to leave a dead knot. Once you forcefully cover it with the bewitching spell, she will die on the spot. Qi Xian is such an important bargaining chip. Do you think I wouldn't leave any insurance? Gu Mengmeng frowned. This was also the reason why she didn't dare to kill Cole after snatching Qi Xian back. Cole chuckled. You're not going to kill me? Gu Mengmeng retracted her hand and raised her leg to kick Cole. It wasn't that Cole didn't sense it, but he purposely didn't dodge. He allowed Gu Mengmeng to send him flying and land on the ground pathetically. Leah. Gu Mengmeng turned back to look at Leah. Bode's injuries were not light, but they were not fatal. Leah had already treated his wounds and upon hearing Gu Mengmeng's call, He immediately rushed over to treat Colin, Adali and Sandy's other partners, who had been sat on by Cole just now. Cole propped himself up from the ground. He held onto his left ribs and gently touched them. Three were broken. Every time he moved, the broken ribs would scrape against his internal organs. Needless to say, it was quite painful. Still smiling, Cole said, "I've already received my punishment. Agu, just watch the show." Gu Mingming didn't want to waste her breath on Cole, nor was she in the mood to watch the show. She just stared at him coldly. "Today's attack, were you the one behind it?" Cole didn't answer her. "Would you believe me if I said no?" "No." Gu Mingming answered directly. Cole sighed and said, "All right, then just take it that I was the one who did it." "Purpose?" Gu Mingming asked. Cole thought for a moment and said, "Probably, because he was bored." Gu Mingming clearly did not believe him. She did not think that Cole was someone who would do something out of boredom. Every time, he would weave a web of seemingly unrelated things step by step, almost wrapping her up to the point where she was unable to resist. Seeing that Gu Mingming did not believe him, Cole frowned and said, "Or, I just want to make my presence known in front of you, in case you forget me after not seeing me for a long time." Gu Mingming's face darkened and her patience was slipping away bit by bit. "Gu Mingming." A soft call came from behind, accompanied by soft sobs. Sandy must have been scared out of her wits to make such a sound. Gu Mingming did not have the time to care about Cole's motives, and could only turn around to comfort Sandy. He gently hugged Sandy in his arms and patted her back. "It's okay, I'm here. I will protect you. You know, I am very strong." Chapter 1044. Save. Gu Mingming caught onto the keyword, and her gaze was filled with astonishment. Sandy nodded and pointed at the bushes in the distance with her trembling hand. Gu Mingming squinted her eyes and looked in that direction. After a closer look, she realized that there were many corpses lying all over the place. Cole would save Sandy? Didn't this pervert only know how to harm others? Cole chuckled and said, "Accident." Gu Mingming ignored Cole because no matter what he did, in Gu Mingming's eyes, he was just a weasel paying respects to a chicken, and did not have any good intentions. Cole took a deep breath, and then seriously felt the pain from his internal organs caused by his broken bones. The smile on his lips deepened and melded into one with the night sky. He said with a slight grievance, "Agu, you really don't understand me. I want to be the most special person in your life. How can I allow anyone other than me to threaten you? If you hate someone else, I will be jealous." "Pervert." Gu Mingming threw this sentence at him, and turned around to ignore Cole. Elvis did not like the way Cole was looking at Gu Mingming. Seeing that Gu Mingming had no intention to continue talking to Cole, he moved to stand between the two of them. He did not release his beast pressure, but his gaze was filled with a murderous aura. Cole did not respond to Elvis, and just turned around lazily. He said so slow, "Agu will be impatient if we wait any longer." Gu Mingming comforted Sandy, while paying attention to the surroundings. There were messy footsteps approaching from afar. For some reason, those footsteps seemed to be stepping on the tip of Gu Mingming's heart. Every step was so heavy that Gu Mingming could not help but frown. "Ha, you're finally here." Cole stood calmly and the smile on his face deepened, with a hint of bloodlust and wickedness. Just as he finished his sentence, a group of males had already surrounded them. The one leading them was Oakley, and beside him stood over 20 males emitting a murderous aura. Gu Mingming glanced at them briefly. She had seen 16 of them before. On the day she had just returned to Sauter, these 16 people had welcomed her at the entrance of Sauter. Without saying a word, the 20 over people pounced on Cole in unison. Among them, there were 2 5th-level orcs, 7 or 8 4th-level orcs, and the rest were 3rd-level orcs. Cole instantly unleashed his might, and the 3rd-level orc collapsed onto the ground. The level 4 orcs gritted their teeth and persevered, but their combat power was reduced to almost negligible. Hence, it became a triangular battle between the 2 5th-level orcs and Cole. If Cole had not been sent flying by Gu Mingming's kick, it would have been difficult for him to win with his 5th-level strength. But it was almost impossible for these 2 5th-level orcs who were not at their peak to kill him. But now, Cole's ribs were injured, and even breathing would injure his internal organs, not to mention the intense battle. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Cole knelt down on one knee. A 5th-level lion beast swept its leg and kicked Cole's left chest. That was where Gu Mingming had injured him. The broken bone pierced into Cole's lungs and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Cole's consciousness started to dissipate, but his gaze was fixed on Gu Mingming. His blood-stained lips curled up slightly and he said in a breathless voice, "If you don't save me, I will die." Cole's voice was very soft, but he was sure that Gu Mingming could hear him. After all, she had the power of a beast king. Aside from the topic, "Cole, you said that my method of threatening Gu is old-fashioned? Ha, there is obviously a method that works every time. Why should I waste effort to think of a new one? Author, don't come out to show your existence. Everyone can drown you with their spit. Hurry and scram and crawl away smoothly." Chapter 1045. Gu Mingming clenched her fists tightly as she struggled internally. She finally understood what Cole's motive was when he told her that his fate was linked to Qixuan's. Take a gamble? As long as she did not do anything, Cole would be dead meat. If the bargaining chip was Qixuan's life, Gu Mingming bit her lower lip, but still dashed forward in a big stride. She grabbed the back of Cole's neck and pulled him back, narrowly avoiding the sharp claws of another 5th-level Black Panther orc that was about to dig his heart out. Elvis rushed to Gu Mingming's side half a second later and kicked the Black Panther's outstretched arm. The Black Panther's entire body tilted to one side. Then his sharp claws dug into a tree branch at the side. With a loud crack, a huge chunk of the tree branch was torn off. The Black Panther's reaction was very agile as he immediately pounced back to fight Elvis. Meanwhile, after Gu Mingming pulled Cole back, she pressed his neck against the ground and resisted the urge to snap his neck. She glared at him harshly before letting go and returning to the battlefield. Although the Black Panther and the lion were not at their peak, one had outstanding agility, while the other had outstanding strength. In a 1 versus 2 situation, Elvis was at a huge disadvantage. Gu Mingming had just stood up when Cole grabbed her wrist and pulled her inwards. Gu Mingming was caught off guard and her entire body fell into Cole's chest. He was already injured and after being smashed by Gu Mingming, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Although he immediately turned his head, some blood still splattered onto Gu Mingming's face. Cough, coughed, cough. The blood flowed back into his veins and Cole coughed violently. Gu Mingming did not have the leisure to take care of him. She wanted to pry his hand away and stand up to help Elvis, but Cole held onto her hand and refused to let go as he coughed. "You don't want your remaining hand either, do you?" As Gu Mingming said. She raised her hand to break Cole's other hand. Cole frowned and shook his head as he coughed. Then he saw many black figures leaping over from all directions. Elvis was shocked and instinctively took a step back to shield Gu Mingming. At the same time, the 3rd-level beasts on the ground, the 4th-level beasts that were barely holding on and the 2 5th-level beasts that were still trembling with Elvis just now all showed signs of defeat. The 3rd-level and 4th-level beasts were bitten to death. The 2 5th-level beasts were scattered by a group of 3rd-level and 4th-level beasts, and the Black Panther was completely surrounded. No matter how hard he bit and killed, he could not break through the encirclement. On the other hand, the lion was being attacked by 2 5th-level stray beasts. Black Panther wanted to release his beast pressure to get rid of the 3rd and 4th-level orcs surrounding him to help the lion, but before he could release his beast pressure, the lion's head had already been bitten off by 2 stray beasts, one on the head and the other on the spine. The 3rd-level and 4th-level orcs immediately dispersed, and the 2 5th-level stray beasts immediately counterattacked. No matter how agile the Black Panther was, it was of no use. It did not even have the time to let out a cry before its chest was cut open, and its organs spilled all over the ground. And all this happened in less than 10 seconds. Gu Mingming looked at Cole, who was clutching onto her wrist tightly. Her coughing gradually subsided, but her breathing was still not smooth. But her lips curled into a smile that said, "That's all," with a hint of scheming and sarcasm. Chapter 1046. Cole tilted his head and ignored Gu Mingming's tugging. He refused to let go and leaned into Gu Mingming's arms. Gu Mingming felt disgusted and wanted to push him away. But he looked like he would definitely die if she used any more force, so Gu Mengmeng did not dare to make any big movements. Cole's expression became even more arrogant after he succeeded. Tilting his face, Cole smiled and pointed at Oakley with his trembling chin. Now Gu, do you wish for him to live or to die? Gu Mengmeng frowned at Cole. He obviously came to kill you today. If I said I want him to live, would you let him off? Cole chuckled. Blood trickled down from the corner of his lips, but he did not seem to care. If he deserves to die just because he wanted to kill me, then there would only be piles of bones left in this world. Cough, cough, cough. I don't blame him for wanting to kill me. But he made use of you, so I cannot let him off. Gu Mengmeng did not quite understand what Cole was talking about. There was no fear on Oakley's face, but it was filled with guilt. He did not dare to look into Gu Mengmeng's eyes. Cole sneered. People who are disloyal to you do not deserve to stay by your side. Oakley's eyes were fixed on Cole, but he did not dare to move an inch to meet Gu Mengmeng's gaze. He could only turn all his anger into a voice. The winner takes all. If you want to kill me, then kill me. But after you kill me, let Bloom go. Although Cole's chest was in excruciating pain, and every word he said was excruciating, he was leaning on Gu Mengmeng's shoulder. He felt that this was the most wonderful feeling. Even the pain made him so happy. Even though every word he said would cause his internal organs to be rubbed by the broken bones, causing his entire body to spasm in pain, he did not stop talking as if he was torturing himself. He talked back and forth with Oakley. Huh? Do you think you still have the right to make requests? Gu Mengmeng was confused. She looked at Cole and then at Oakley. Who is Bloom? Upon hearing Gu Mengmeng's words, Oakley lowered his gaze and stared at the ground, until he understood that Cole would not answer this question for him. Cole was looking at him as though he was watching a good show, forcing him to face Gu Mengmeng himself. Clenching his fists, clenching his teeth and abandoning all his pride and self-esteem, Oakley raised his head with tears streaming down his cheeks. Gu Mengmeng, everything is my fault. Bloom is innocent. Please save him, at least save him. So who is Bloom? Gu Mengmeng rarely saw males in the beast world cry. No matter how badly injured or painful they were, they would grit their teeth and endure it. The only time was when Peter and Natalie got back together. Peter had cried, but he had only secretly shed 2 drops of tears. He had not expected Oakley's eyes to be so red, with tears and snot flowing down his face in handfuls, looking extremely pathetic. Bloom is the little snake you left behind to communicate with. He's my lover. Gu Mengmeng was stunned and could not react for a long while, because she clearly remembered that little snake was a damn male. Gu Mengmeng did not discriminate against homosexuals. On the contrary, she had a cowardly fujoshi soul. The reason why she was cowardly was because she was extremely brave when shouting slogans and fantasizing. But when a BLCP really appeared beside her, she was not used to it. Chapter 1047. Oakley's hoarse voice pulled Gu Mengmeng back from her thoughts. The pleading and sorrowful look on his face touched Gu Mengmeng's heart. Was love differentiated by gender? In the past, when they were in the dormitory reading a tofu manga from H country, there was a sentence in it that was treated as a divine decree by the few fujoshis in the dormitory. Everyone is like a magnet. Different genders are like 2 different poles, easily attracted to each other. But for the 2 poles to embrace each other, it requires even more courage and strength. It's already so difficult for them. Why should we add to their resistance? Gu Mengmeng turned to look at Cole, frowning. Oakley is my friend. No matter what he did in the past, I will protect him. As for Bloom, he belongs to the Snake King Valley. You have to return him to me. Cole chuckled, his laughter sounding strange and demonic. He looked up at Gu Mengmeng, asking in a gentle tone. You are still as soft-hearted as before. But who asked you to be my Agu? Since you have already asked, I will naturally have to satisfy you. He lifted his finger, and one of the stray beasts raised its head and howled. Not long after, there was a rustling sound, and then a small snake in the form of a half-beast slithered out. She was used to seeing Wabiai's burly half-beast form. Compared to him, this little snake looked much more delicate. His upper body had smooth muscles, but they were not very strong, at most at a healthy level, probably like Those few boys in the swimming club in school who could never get a spot in the competition. There were bruises all over his body, and there was a large cut at the corner of his mouth, still stained with blood. He looked dazed, clearly approaching her at a steady speed, but Gu Mengmeng could clearly feel the fear radiating from his body. Elvis and Leah had always been gentle to Gu Mengmeng, but even so, there would always be deep or shallow bruises on her body after sex, so with just one look, Gu Mengmeng knew what was up with the bruises on Bloom's body. Glaring fiercely at Cole, Gu Mengmeng instinctively pushed him away, throwing him onto the ground, saying, "Disgusting." He then drew a piece of animal skin from the side and wrapped it around Bloom's upper body to cover the traces. After being thrown by Gu Mengmeng, Cole's broken bone pierced deeper into his lungs, before being pulled out a little more. A mouthful of hot blood flowed out from his throat. Cole exhaled and used his broken elbow to support himself on the ground. Then he used his other hand to gently wipe the blood stains at the corner of his lips. He chuckled. Not in Gu's arms, the pain actually became so dull and tasteless. With that, Cole transformed into a fox and then back instantly. This switch could put dislocated bones back in place. Broken bones were still broken, but the healing of the bones after they were put back in place was just a trivial matter for a level 5 orc. Cole's transformation was very fast, but Gu Mengmeng's eyesight was too good now, so she still saw it. Heh, a fox without a tail looks really weird. Chapter 1048. Cole, I will kill you. Oakley's eyes were bloodshot as he struggled to break free from the stray beast's grip, looking like he was going to fight to the death with Cole. But Cole did not seem to mind as he laughed sarcastically and asked, "Can't you tell that Agu doesn't want me to die?" Oakley could not hear a single word Cole said, nor did he care about the disparity between their abilities. He only felt that he was going crazy. No, he was already crazy. He just wanted to kill Cole. Kill Cole. Cole waved his hands lightly, and the person who was holding Oakley released his grip. Oakley was like a trapped beast that had broken free from its chains as he pounced towards Cole. And before he could even touch a single strand of Cole's hair, Cole released his beast pressure and pressed Oakley onto the ground. And this time, not only Oakley was severely injured, the rest of the people present were also affected, regardless of friend or foe. Third level and below orcs were injured again, and Bloom was directly pressed back into his original form. Leah and the other fourth level orcs held onto their chests and forced themselves to take a deep breath, refusing to give in with their pride. Fifth level orcs also had a great disparity in abilities, and those who were not at their peak would still feel fearful of this beast pressure. The only ones who did not care about it other than Cole himself were Elvis and Gu Mengmeng. Looking at Oakley, who was lying on the ground beside his feet, Cole sat up and sneered. "You are so weak and yet you still dare to say such arrogant words. TSK 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 trash." Gu Mengmeng walked over and helped Oakley up. She then looked at Cole with a cold smile and said, "In my eyes you are also weak. You are just a despicable person who held Qixian hostage, so that I don't dare to kill you. What right do you have to talk so arrogantly and belittle others? If we are talking about trash, then you, Cole, are the number one in the beast world." "Agu, you are teasing me again." Cole looked at Gu Mengmeng with a doting expression, and said those words which made Gu Mengmeng shudder all over. She spat out, "So damn disgusting." Oakley was already unable to exert any strength from the pressure, and could not even stand up. He just gently pushed Gu Mengmeng's hand away and crawled to Bloom's side. He hugged him tightly in his arms and wrapped him up tightly with the hide that was used to cover his private parts. He was so careful, so protective. "Abu, it's me. Don't be afraid, I will accompany you, yeah." With every word Oakley uttered, a trickle of blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. However, he did not seem to notice it as he smiled at the little snake in his arms that had fainted from the beast pressure. Kissing his head, she whispered, "Sorry, I am too useless. I can't protect you. You always say that I am smart. But what is the use of being smart? I tried my best to set up a trap to save you, but in the end, I still failed miserably." Bloom moved slightly in Oakley's arms and forced his eyes open. He wanted to transform into a human and talk to Oakley, but how could a second-level beast withstand Cole's fifth-level coercion? It was already a miracle that he was still conscious at this moment. Sticking out his snake tongue, Bloom licked away the tears on Oakley's face and hissed something. Oakley could not understand, but Gu Mengmeng could. Chapter 1049. No. I won't allow it. I won't allow it. Oakley locked Bloom tightly in his arms like a madman. He used all his strength but still felt that it was not tight enough, as if Bloom would not leave him as long as he did not let go. Bloom's eyelids started to blur, and he could only rely on his snake's sense of the king of his tribe to turn his head to look at Gu Mengmeng with difficulty. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips and did not say a word. Bloom was telling her that everything Oakley did was for his sake, and that he was kidnapped by Cole because he was too weak, forcing Oakley to listen to his threats. Everything was his fault. He was begging Gu Mengmeng to forgive Oakley. Abu, I beg you for my sake, bear with it a little more, alright, ma'am? Oakley didn't know what Bloom was talking about, but a lover is so sensitive that he could feel the life draining out of the person in his arms. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Bloom was saying, please forgive him, save him. Without waiting for Gu Mengmeng's reply or another sentence of Oakley's plea, Bloom breathed his last breath with his murky eyes. His originally cold and soft body collapsed bit by bit. The entire weight of the snake had returned to Oakley's arms. He had never felt so heavy before. In the past, no matter how Oakley carried him, he would always feel as light as a feather. Ah! Oakley howled at the sky until he could no longer make a sound. He continued to howl at the sky with his mouth wide open, as though he was questioning why the heavens wanted to take bosom away. His pair of scarlet eyes were bloodshot and even bulging out. An unprecedented sense of helplessness, no matter how he howled. His voice could not be transmitted. Endless despair enveloped him so tightly that he could not breathe. His heart fell into the abyss along with Bloom's limp body. There was no end. Then, blood flowed out from the corner of his eyes, followed by his ears, corners of his mouth, nostrils. Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists tightly and wanted to stop Oakley, but Leah hugged her waist. He did not say anything and just shook his head. Gu Mengmeng did not know how much time had passed, but this was the first time she felt that counting time in seconds was so long and torturous. Oakley's body went limp and fell to the side while Bloom's body was still tightly held in his arms. Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists tightly and turned to glare at Cole with hatred. Cole smiled at Gu Mengmeng fearlessly. Gu, your gaze is so beautiful. Just like a poisonous rose blooming in the darkest night. Heh, that's a fatal temptation. Gu Mengmeng gritted her teeth and said word by word. Cole, what exactly do you want? Why did you appear by my side like a ghost? Do you want to get me or kill me? No matter what, just come at me directly. What kind of ability is it to always use the people around you to make a move? Cole took Gu Mengmeng's angry roars as if they were words of love. Then he smiled widely and said, it's so rare that Agu is starting to care about me. What do I want? I want to pull you into my world, and then look at the world's peerless scenery with me. You know, after being alone for a long time, you will still feel lonely. If you can pull me, just come and pull me. Why are you torturing an innocent person? Chapter 1050. Agu, actually I don't mind if you hate me, but I mind if you misunderstand me. Cole explained with a look of, I really can't do anything to you. As for me, I did take away the little snake you left behind, but as long as Oakley is obedient and helps you take care of Sauter, I will not mistreat his little lover. You drugged and raped him, and you still say you won't mistreat him. Gu Mengmeng was almost roaring. Cole chuckled and replied calmly. It was Oakley who initiated the challenge. I just accepted it. Now that he is dead, you can say whatever you want. Gu Mengmeng gritted her teeth. Cole shook his head and said, have you ever thought that the people lying here are the leaders and the main fighting force of the surrounding tribes? The weakest of them is a third-level orc. What right do you think they have to listen to Oakley, a second-level orc, and go against the stray beasts? Water source, Gu Mengmeng knew the answer almost without thinking. But she did not want to answer Cole, and just stared at him coldly. Cole did not force Gu Mengmeng to answer, and just continued. These 16 tribes became Oakley's blade for the sake of the water source. And those tribes who could not get the water source will become a knife hanging over your head. Cole's gaze casually looked towards the bushes not far away, where there were still many corpses. He chuckled, as if he was laughing at Oakley's wild imagination. His tone was filled with contempt and sarcasm as he continued. If there's anything good about him, it's probably that he understands me. He knows that I will never allow others to use the same method to coerce you. So he purposely spread the news that you can get the water source if you get the messenger of the beast deity, and also spread the news of me holding Qixuan hostage to threaten you. He knew that he would not be able to fool me if he was just bluffing, so in order to force me to appear here on time, he really risked your life. Cole pointed to the bushes and continued. If I had come a little later, Sandy's entire family would have already been caught by them. In such a dangerous situation, they would not be like me who would consider your feelings and treat Sandy like a gentleman. Those 6 newborn leopards would probably all die tonight. Cole looked at Gu Mingming lazily and casually. He asked with a smile. If I pinched Sandy and asked you to change the well, based on your character, you would have dug it without hesitation, right? Gu Mingming did not say anything, but she knew he was right. As long as Sandy was fine, digging a well was nothing. Cole seemed to understand her thoughts and said, but have you ever thought about it? Once you dig this well, Sandy's family will become the target that the entire beast world will fight over. Everyone's eyes will be on them, because their family is equivalent to a water source, or even a bargaining chip that can be used to get whatever you want. Gu Mingming froze and frowned. She was not afraid of encountering anything, not only because she was extremely powerful, but also because Elvis and Leah would always protect her. But what about Sandy? She was just a gentle half-orc female, the one who could not even defeat Nina in a fight. If she were to be pushed to the heart of the storm, just thinking about it made her heart ache. Chapter 1051. Actually, Gu Mingming wanted to refute Cole. She wanted to say that Oakley was not that kind of person, he would not do such a thing. She wanted to say that she had already dug a well in St. Nazaire and many people knew about it, so how could she say that Oakley was the one who spread the news? She wanted to say that many people knew that he had used Qixuan to threaten her, so it was not strange for someone to do the same thing in order to obtain a water source. She wanted to say that it was just a coincidence for the surrounding 16 tribes to appear here today. However, even if she said these words, would she believe it herself? Many people knew that there was a well in St. Nazaire, but most of them thought that the messenger of the beast deity had descended, so the beast deity bestowed the eye of life upon her. Only the people in St. Nazaire knew that the well was dug by Gu Mingming. Cole was a stray beast and rarely appeared in public. Most of the time, he hid in the shadows and plotted strategies. That time when he openly followed beside her was because he had used a camouflage technique to disguise himself as Leah. Moreover, Qixuan had been by Cole's side even before his evolution. Everyone only knew that Cole had a little wolf cub by his side, but who knew that that little wolf cub was the second son of the messenger of the beast deity? Damn it! Gu Mingming looked at Oakley and Bloom's corpses and scolded with reddened eyes. Why are you apologizing? If you didn't King apologize, I could still defend you. Now that you see me being forced into a corner, are you satisfied? You still dare to say that we are friends. Is there a friend like you? If only Oakley could keep up the act and not lose his rationality due to guilt, not daring to look at Gu Mingming, and even apologizing to her. Then, just based on Gu Mingming's animosity towards Cole, Gu Mingming could firmly say that she did not believe a single word of what Cole said now. No matter how logical his deductions were, she would not believe it. Even if he threw all the evidence in her face, she would not believe it. Because you are Cole, I will not believe anything you say. But Oakley and Bloom apologized to her before they died. Gu, I protected your friend. Cole grinned. So shouldn't you express your gratitude to me? Thank you. If you weren't holding Qixuan's life in your hands, I would really want to thank you properly. Cole obviously understood the meaning behind the word thank you. He shrugged his shoulders nonchalantly and said, Gu, I can't die now, just bear with it a little longer and hate me a little more. When I push you to the position that belongs to you, I will remove the connection between me and Qixuan. When that time comes, you can do whatever you want, alright? He sounded like he was coaxing his girlfriend who was throwing a tantrum. So fucking disgusting. Agoo. I saved Sandy all for you. If you don't express your gratitude to me, then I can only ask for a gift from Sandy. You know, I don't like being owed anything. But I don't know if Sandy can afford to pay the stray beasts for saving her life. After all, she just gave birth not long ago. Gu Mingming's mind exploded. Natalie had once told her how stray beasts treated females. Chapter 1052. Cole held the tooth that was knocked out in his mouth, and did not spit it out. He just turned his face back and looked at Gu Mingming with a faint smile. Gu Mingming gritted her teeth and said, I thank you for saving my friend. Cole covered his mouth with his hand, and pretended to cough twice. He hid the tooth in his palm, and then spat out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, he had spat out enough blood today and this mouthful was not too sudden. Then he still chuckled and said, You're welcome. Gu Mingming raised her leg and stepped on Cole's shoulder, flattening him to the ground. Then she looked down at Cole like a female bandit and said word by word, I thank you for saving Sandy, but I will first note down the debt of killing Oakley and Bloom. When I find a way to dispel the connection between you and Qi Xian, I will definitely settle the score with you. Alright, I look forward to it. Cole did not struggle and just laid down to look at Gu Mingming. He laughed softly and his gaze was gentle. Gu Mingming stood up and kicked Bode. Can you stand up? Bode's injuries were not serious. It was mainly because of the beast pressure that had exploded out so many times that he felt extremely uncomfortable. But now this scene, Bode gritted his teeth and nodded. He supported himself against the wall and staggered to stand up. Gu Mingming looked at his cowardly manner, and could not trust him to hand Sandy over. She could only glare at him, and then went to help Sandy up herself. Sandy, stay at my place tonight, alright? Sandy had been scared out of her wits today and her eyes were glazed over. She only regained her senses after Gu Mingming finished her sentence and nodded in a daze. Gu Mingming threw the 6 little milk buns to Hutta and Jiaoyu, then helped Sandy out. Elvis and Leah exchanged glances and searched through the pile of corpses. They carried Sandy's partners on their shoulders and brought them along. After returning to the stone castle, Sandy kept holding on to Gu Mingming's hand as she was too afraid. Gu Mingming did not struggle and arranged a room for Sandy on the first floor. She stayed in the room with Sandy for the night. The next morning, the sun rose as usual. Leah stayed behind in the stone castle to take care of Sandy's severely handicapped family, while Elvis appeared at the entrance of Sodder as an absolutely powerful character. The majestic Elvis just stood there with his hands behind his back, and the 16 witch doctors from the tribe who came to demand an explanation immediately fell silent. They did not even dare to say another word. No matter what agreement your leader had with Oakley previously, now that Oakley is dead, your leader is also dead, so the agreement is automatically terminated. Elvis's words were very calm. There was not even a hint of fluctuation in his tone. How can this be? That's right. The strongest warrior in our tribe is dead. How can you go back on your words? This isn't what we agreed on. This. Huh. Elvis sneered and said, Come and fight if you're not convinced. If you win, you have the final say. Strength was the most important, and the winner would have all the spoils. This was a fixed rule in the beast world. Look at this black-faced evil spirit in front of them. Heh, even the strongest warrior in the tribe might not be able to defeat him when he was alive. Now, these witch doctors want to fight him? Heh, even if they were to be his punching bag, he would despise them for being too soft. Chapter 1053. On a hill 3,000 meters away from the Sodder tribe, Cole was lying on his back, basking in the sun. He summoned a stray beast and handed him a small beast skin bag. Go to Zacharias and deliver this to the young master. Yes. The stray beast did not dare to ask further. He just kept the small beast skin bag and transformed into his beast form before flying off. Another stray beast came to report. Mighty Cole, the 16 tribes have all submitted to Sodder. Elvis was the one who announced the acceptance personally. Cole chuckled and nodded, as if everything was within his expectations. Issue an order. From today onwards, the stray beasts are forbidden to attack will be added to these 16 tribes. Yes. The person who reported nodded respectfully and retreated. Mighty Cole. A female sat against the light. She gently caressed Cole's chest with her little hands. Her voice was soft, with a tinge of shyness and timidity. She said in a very loving manner, "You have done so many things for the great messenger. Why don't you tell her directly? If she knows how well you have treated her, she will definitely be very touched." Treated? As if he had heard a joke, Cole's lips curled upwards happily. "Tell me, what good things do you think I did to her? Is it worth it for her to be touched? Let's not talk about the distant ones, and just talk about the recent ones." That side was obviously about to close the net. But because Sauter's side did not send the communication information that was supposed to be sent over, you gave up the plan that you had painstakingly laid down and rushed over to Sauter, afraid that she would really fall into Oakley's trap, so you rushed over to protect her. Huh. Cole's hand gently stroked the female's ears as he said nonchalantly, "You were tricked by Oakley? Ha! Agu is the messenger of the beast deity that I personally groomed. How could she fall into that kind of scum's trap? Don't forget, she still has Leah, who is known as the smartest person in the beast world, and Elvis, whose skills have reached the peak. The black-white double ghosts aren't just for show." Cole paused for a moment. He seemed to recall how Gu Mingming glared at him with red eyes last night. That pair of clear and clean eyes only had a shadow of him at that time. Then why did you rush over? That female saw that Cole was obviously in a good mood, and seemed to like this topic. Hence, she carefully pretended to be curious. In fact, Cole was in a good mood. The corners of his lips were still curled up. He said lazily, "In this world, I am the only one who can make things difficult for Agu. Did anyone else deserve to upset her? Hee, just thinking about it makes me unhappy." "Lord Cole is not honest," the female said softly. "Didn't you already sense it when Oakley secretly contacted the 16 tribes? But you didn't stop his actions and even added fuel to the fire without leaving a trace. Last night, you killed all the leaders and strongest warriors of the 16 tribes. Isn't it to remove all the thorns from the 16 tribes, so that the great messenger can sit back and enjoy the fruits of your labor without being held back?" The female was so excited that she seemed to have forgotten everything else. She did not notice the cold glint beneath Cole's smile and continued, "Oh, that's right, Dora. From the stray beast's attack to Leonard's death. It was you who helped the great messenger peel off the hard shell so that the great messenger could enjoy the sweet fruits." Cole. Great messenger. Out of topic. Alright, today's update is over. Another bunch of people had died. When I was chatting with the other authors yesterday, they said that their readers were anticipating the death of the male and female protagonists every day. I said the question my little baby asked me every day was, "Susu, how many more episodes does Cole have left?" I calculated with my fingers. I can't say it. Chapter 1054. You think too highly of yourself. Cole's lips were still curled upwards, but his hand was tightly gripping onto the female's neck without any mercy. It was only when the female almost fainted from the lack of oxygen that Cole released his hand, allowing her to fall limply onto his knees. Then he stroked her ears as if he was caressing a pet. His tone was gentle and had a tinge of pampering, but it was mixed with a dangerous warning tone. I don't like females that are too smart, understand? Unless that female was called Gu Mingming. Yes, mighty Cole, I have crossed the line. The female didn't dare to say any more nonsense. She curled up into a ball and lay trembling on Cole's knees. Cole caressed her furry ears, squinting his eyes as he looked up to enjoy the sunlight, as if he wasn't the one who wanted to strangle her to death just now. This female wasn't wrong, but she only knew half of it. He only discovered it when Oakley contacted the 16 tribes? What kind of joke was that? The moment he captured Bloom, the trap had already been laid. And when he knew that Gu Mingming had left a little snake for Oakley, he had already started to lay out his plans. Their love was a product of Cole's meticulous design. To think that they had fallen so deeply into it that one died while the other died from grief. Tsk, how cheap. Lowering his head to look at the female on his knees, Cole's smile held a trace of contempt. She could only see the surface, but she still dared to boast in front of him. Agu was still the best. That sly little fox was still the best. When she was analyzing Dora's situation, there were clearly only a few scattered clues, but she managed to piece together 80% of the original picture. She looked so beautiful at that time that one couldn't help but want to set up even more elaborate traps to trap her, and then let her slowly dismantle them. Thinking of Gu Mengmeng, Cole's mood improved again. He caressed the female's head and said, "Go back. Don't let Agu discover your identity. Otherwise, I am not a person who knows how to be protective of the fairer sex." Yes. The female felt as if she had been pardoned. She then retreated cautiously. Cole narrowed his eyes as he watched her leave. Then he gave a low laugh in exasperation. Why does Agu like half-orcs so much? He's obviously very lowly. On the other side, Elvis had settled the matters of the 16 tribes. The first thing he did upon returning to the stone castle was to hug Gu Mengmeng. I haven't seen her for the whole morning. I miss her so much. After taking 2 deep breaths of her scent, the exhaustion in his body was dispelled. How is it? Gu Mengmeng asked. Elvis placed her on his thighs and played with her soft little hands while answering. We followed Li's instructions to distribute the order of drawing water. It's just that there are too many loopholes left behind by Oakley. Although the 16 tribes have submitted to us, the benefits involved cannot be underestimated. If we don't handle it properly, there will definitely be a huge mess. I think Leah is the only one who can handle this mess. Gu Mengmeng frowned. You mean we are going to stay in solder permanently? Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead and said, Silly girl, we will only stay at the place you like. As for whether solder is chaotic or not, who cares? Gu Mengmeng facepalmed. What a willful Elvis. Chapter 1055. Gu Mengmeng turned to look at Leah. Leah swayed his tail and didn't say a word. He just cast his gaze to the side. Gu Mengmeng followed his gaze. Jiaoyu? Gu Mengmeng blurted out instinctively. Leah nodded. Qixian and Kamwu are already in charge of Zacharias. If Huda and Jiaoyu are still treated like children by your side, they will probably feel very disappointed. Although they don't say it, wolves are not animals that can be tied to one's side like dogs. Gu Mengmeng sighed. Children are no longer up to their mothers? Their wings have hardened at just 1 year old? She hadn't even enjoyed the times when her children hugged her thighs and acted coquettishly. But did she really have to tie her children up for her own selfish reasons? Just as Elvis had said, as long as you are happy, what's the big deal about raising a bunch of useless wolf cubs? Raising them until they were useless. Raising them until they were useless. You guys discuss it, I don't care anymore. Gu Mengmeng buried herself in Elvis's arms, not wanting to say anything else. Leah chuckled as he walked over and called Huda and Jiaoyu to his side. After a brief discussion, the matter was settled. Solder had always been a turbulent place and Cole's power was deeply entrenched here. The newly joined 16 tribes were also unstable, and if they wanted to control the situation, they had to have the ability to suppress everyone. They had to be at least at the level of Elvis or Wabi. But Gu Mengmeng liked Saint Nazir more than Solder, so Elvis could not stay. Wabi was restricted by the seasons. He had to stay in the Snake King Valley during the winter and dry seasons, so he could not stay here either. Peter could come over to control the situation. He also had the ability to manage the tribe, but he had to take care of Natalie and the 6 little ones by himself. He could not do anything else. Moreover, Natalie only had one partner, Peter. Once Peter was attacked and pinned down, Natalie and the 6 little ones would be in a protective vacuum state. By then, as long as they killed Natalie, they could easily kill Peter. So if Peter were to take over Solder, he would have to at least wait until the 6 little ones had grown to a certain level. Now that he could not find a suitable strong warrior, he could only use his status to suppress others. The blood of the mighty beast deity, the sons of the mighty messenger, with the 2 of them holding the fort here, Saint Nazir, Solder and Zacharias would become an impregnable iron triangle. No matter which of them was attacked, the other two would immediately launch a frantic counterattack to rescue them, and they would do so regardless of the cost. There was a kind of outstanding ability called, "My mother is Gu Mengmeng." The dry season was not over yet, and Gu Mengmeng was not in a hurry to leave. So Leah happened to be free and could bring Hutta and Jiaoyu to familiarize themselves with government affairs. Because of what happened that night, Sandy was quite frightened. Gu Mengmeng did not let her return to her original stone house, but let her stay in the stone castle temporarily. On one hand, it was to comfort Sandy, and on the other hand, it was more convenient for Leah to treat Colin and the rest. And from Sandy's explanation, Gu Mengmeng knew that she had misunderstood Cole on at least one matter that day. That was Cole sitting on the heavily injured Colin and the rest, not to bully them, but to protect them. Sandy said that Cole was sitting there and said, "I want to see who has the ability to take a life from under my feet." Chapter 1056. The dry season gradually passed, and Sandy slowly walked out from the trauma of that night. Other than being extremely reliant on Gu Mengmeng, everything else was fine. Jiaoyu and Hutta were busy following Leah every day, but they always had confident smiles on their faces, and did not feel exhausted. This made Gu Mengmeng feel proud and a little disappointed at the same time. Her children were too independent, and had their own opinions. Looking at the 6 little ones running around Sandy with hidden bitterness, Gu Mengmeng sighed in her heart. How good would it be if her sons could stay young and stick to her like this? Little Munchkin was still very affectionate with Gu Mengmeng and often hung on to her, rubbing and licking her body. This greatly satisfied Gu Mengmeng's motherly heart. The dry season passed quickly. Although it was not peaceful, at least they had survived. Oakley's death was actually quite a blow to Gu Mengmeng. After all, they were friends. Even if he did something unfavorable to her, wasn't the greatness of love because of its selfishness? If what Oakley did had succeeded, it might have caused some trouble for Gu Mengmeng. But what was the point of causing trouble between friends? What made Gu Mengmeng the most unhappy was that he was clearly in trouble, but refused to seek help from her. He could only bear the burden of guilt and worry alone. If he was still alive, Gu Mengmeng would probably beat him up until he could not take care of himself and scold him. Then, let Leah treat his injuries and let Bloom take good care of him. Unfortunately, reality cruelly took away the ifs and only left the result. She wanted to beat him up and then forgive him. But he did not even give her the chance to do so. He just rudely left us sorry, and disappeared forever. The first rain of the rainy season announced the end of the dry season. The water sources of the various tribes gradually became plentiful, and the number of people coming to fetch water gradually decreased. In the end, Leah gave an order that Sauter's water wells would not be open to the public until next year's dry season. When Leah was free, he came back to play with Gu Mengmeng, and threw all the administrative matters to Hutta and Jiaoyu. The bunch of stubborn elders in the Elders' Council were surprisingly obedient, and none of them dared to find trouble with these 2 little wolf cubs. Instead, they all tried their best to assist them. Gu Mengmeng did not feel anything, but Leah lowered his head and chuckled. He thought to himself, "Are you afraid that you will become the next Oakley and be targeted by Cole?" Leah could understand at least 80% of what Cole was doing. He seemed to be forcing Gu Mengmeng step by step, but he was always pushing her towards the path that was most beneficial to her objectively, and even cleared away all the obstacles along the way. But this method, Gu Mengmeng would probably never accept it in her entire life. Elvis had been very busy recently, and did not have much time to accompany Gu Mengmeng as Colin's injuries were gradually recovering. Moreover, Elvis realized that Colin had already reached the peak of 3rd level. He must have accumulated a lot of battle experience before Cole arrived, and was just short of breaking through the bottleneck. Previously, because he was injured, he had to recuperate. Now that he had recovered, he had to immediately break through the boundary of level 3 and enter level 4. His combat power would increase exponentially. Colin himself was particularly enthusiastic. He didn't want to see Sandy curled up in the corner, shivering. It was still drizzling. It was already the 3rd day. Chapter 1057. Gu Mingming stood up and walked up to him. She hugged him gently. Little shit, you are here? Wabiai was taken aback. He reached out and poked Gu Mingming's head. Did something go wrong with you? Normally, shouldn't she give him a tight slap the moment they met and send him flying? Little shit, are you looking for a beating again? Why was the way she opened up was different today? Gu Mingming giggled foolishly. She bounced her head back onto Wabiai's chest like a roly-poly doll. His body was different from Elvis and Leah. His body was always cold, as if it could not be warmed up no matter what. Moreover, Wabiai was actually quite handsome, but Gu Mingming just couldn't sense any hormonal signals from him. Perhaps this was the state of two people who both thought highly of each other, but didn't have any romantic feelings for each other. Perhaps this was the state that existed when two people both thought highly of each other, but didn't have any romantic feelings. Gu Mingming hugged him for a long while before sighing. She told Wabiai about Oakley and Bloom's situation. Wabiai looked as if he had just been enlightened. Ah, so you are behaving strangely today. You are hugging me instead of hitting me? Gu Mingming turned to look at Wabiai with a slightly aggrieved expression. Will you fall in love with someone one day and betray me for her? Is your brain filled with shit? Don't you know that talking about love will delay me from leveling up? I am not stupid. Wabiai looked at Gu Mingming in disdain. He rolled his eyes. But since he betrayed you first, what are you so sad about? Gu Mingming looked up at Wabiai. What if I am forced to destroy the Snake King Valley one day, and then die after apologizing to you? What will you do? Wabiai immediately roared. I dare you to King die. Gu Mingming shrugged. See, you don't even care about the Snake King Valley. You only care about my life? Wabiai was taken aback for 2 seconds. Then he snorted. I think I can understand how you feel. It is just like how Snake suddenly abandoned the entire Snake King Valley and disappeared. He let me know that not every farewell can be well prepared. The ones that will hurt will often catch you off guard. Gu Mingming looked askance at Wabiai and did not speak for a long time. She just took out 2 cups of water and handed one to Wabiai. She held the other in her hand and clinked it lightly before downing it in one gulp. Wabiai didn't understand, but the atmosphere forced him to drink a cup of water, like Gu Mingming. The rain lasted for 7 days before it stopped. Gu Mingming narrowed her eyes lazily and said, Let's go to Zacharias to see Natalie and the children. Then return to St. Nazaire before the rainy season ends. Elvis and Leah never had any objections to Gu Mingming's words. They just nodded and roughly packed their luggage. Colin finally broke through to the 4th level after 3 consecutive days and nights of hellish training. Gu Mingming was initially worried that Zacharias was too close to the stray beasts camp, and it would be inconvenient for Sandy to head over. She wanted Colin to bring Sandy back to St. Nazaire first, but Sandy shook her head and said she wanted to stay behind. Chapter 1058. Gu Mingming didn't insist and just nodded. She hugged Sandy and instructed Colin to protect her well. Colin patted his chest loudly. Gu Mingming smiled in exasperation. He was already a 4th-level beast, but his intelligence could never keep up with his strength. His stubborn attitude seemed rather reliable. Leah pulled Jiaoyu along to instruct him on some matters to take note of in the tribe, while Elvis called Hutta to the side and said, Protect yourself well, don't make my female cry. Hutta's expression changed. Everything had been settled. The next morning, Gu Mingming and the rest left Sauter and headed towards Zacharias. Wabiai instigated Gu Mingming to visit Snake at the beast deity's place, but Gu Mingming rejected him. She knew that Snake had been living well. Even if she didn't visit him, he wouldn't be lonely. Now she wanted to spend time with those who needed her, like Elvis, Leah, and Wabiai. Moreover, Gu Mingming still remembered Elvis's words. He said that every time she went to visit the beast deity, he would feel especially uneasy. He didn't even dare to blink, afraid that she would never return. This feeling of worry must be unbearable. Gu Mingming didn't want Elvis to suffer such grievances. The rainy season was the beast world's best weather. It wasn't as hot and humid as the rainy season, nor was it as dry or deadly as the dry season. The wind at this time was slightly chilly, while the sun shone with a faint warmth. Walking between the heavens and the earth, One could see the radiance everywhere, making one's mood extremely good. When they reached Zacharias, they saw Peter at the side of the dirt strip. Both of them were a little surprised, but Peter was clearly much calmer. "Why are you here?" Gu Mingming spoke first. Peter replied, "This is the closest place to the stray beast camp. With me sitting here, they won't dare to act rashly." "You left Natalie alone?" Gu Mingming said as she followed Peter into the tribe. Peter snorted coldly. He looked at Elvis and then at Gu Mingming. "What do you think?" "What a huge grievance," Gu Mingming laughed dryly. "Why? Natalie has a new lover and neglected you?" Peter exploded. Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly. Fabricating gossip about her own mother-in-law and telling it to her father-in-law. There was probably no other daughter-in-law like her. Peter was afraid that Gu Mingming would say something that would infuriate him to death, so he simply said, "The 6 little ones like to practice martial arts and hang on to him every day. Natalie just keeps running around those kids, and doesn't have time for me." Elvis sighed, then patted Peter's shoulder. Acting like a brother in hardship, he said, "I understand." Peter and Elvis looked at each other, sighing and shaking their heads. This father and son actually had an inexplicable tacit understanding on this matter. When he entered the tribe, Kanwu was fighting with someone. He was surrounded by a circle of people, but no one intervened. Qixuan saw Gu Mingming and the rest from afar but did not say anything. He just smiled at Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming sneaked over and hugged Qixuan, who was covered in furry wolf cubs. She then asked in a low voice, "What happened?" Chapter 1059. Little Uncle was naturally referring to the little wolf cub hanging on Qixuan's body. Gu Mingming took a closer look and saw that the hind leg in Qixuan's arms was injured. Although it was not serious and it was just a scratch, but that was their damn little wolf cub. Without another word, Gu Mingming rolled up her sleeves and charged into the battlefield. She stepped on the second-level orc who was fighting with Kanwu. The orc who was being stepped on was stunned. When he looked up to see Gu Mingming, he was clearly stunned and could not say a word. Kanwu was also taken aback. Then he immediately stood beside Gu Mingming timidly. "Mother." Gu Mingming pointed at Kanwu's nose. "Scram to one side. I will settle the score with you later." "All right." Ever since Kanwu saw Gu Mingming teach Cole a lesson, he did not dare to talk back to her. Crestfallen, he ran to Qixuan's side and whispered, "Second brother, why didn't you warn me?" Qixuan was also very innocent. "I was thinking that if you could not defeat them, I would go up." Who knew that mother would suddenly charge forward? Great messenger. The orc who was being stepped on by Gu Mingming finally reacted. He stammered, "Why did you hit me?" Gu Mingming flexed her wrists. "You hit my sons, so I will hit you. If you are not happy, call your mother over and let her hit me." With that, Gu Mingming pinched the male's thigh hard. He howled in pain. Gu Mingming looked at the purple bean on the ground. "I heard that you took care of my children. This is a gift in return." As he spoke, he slapped the level 2 orc again, accurately knocking out one of his back teeth. Then he said, "Next time I hear you gossip, I'll pull your tongue out. Do you hear me?" The male covered his face and nodded. Then he asked pitifully, "What do you mean by gossip?" Gu Mingming rolled her eyes. She retracted her foot and turned to walk away. She hooked one arm around Kanwu's neck and used her index finger to flick Kanwu and Qixuan's heads. "Didn't I tell the 2 of you that when fighting a tiger, blood brothers will fight together? The opponent is a level 2 beast. Why don't the 2 of you attack together? What if I suffer losses?" "I'm being lectured." The 2 brothers lowered their heads and obediently admitted their mistakes. "Mom, we know we were wrong." Elvis carried Gu Mingming and pulled Kanwu out from her arms, throwing him to the side. This kind of challenge is always one-on-one. It's against the rules for 2 brothers to fight against one. Gu Mingming exploded. "What do you mean by not following the rules? I am in charge of Zacharias now. I am the rule. My rule is not to let my son suffer any losses." Elvis chuckled. "Then why did you show mercy just now and not kill him directly?" Gu Mingming smacked her lips and said, I'm not a homicidal maniac who would want someone's life just because of a little conflict between kids. Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's head and kissed it, saying dotingly, "Tough mouth but soft heart." Burke knew that Gu Mingming had arrived and hurried out to welcome her. However, he stopped 10 steps away and looked at her radiant smiling face under the sunlight, as well as her happy partners, one in black and one in white, beside her. Even the snake beast, which was emitting a sinister aura, felt warm because of her presence. As for him, Chapter 1060. Mimicking solder, Burke also opened up a meeting room in Zacharias. There was no room made of stone, so he could only dig a spacious cave. He found a huge rock and dug out a stone chair with his claws. Then he covered it with a tiger skin. How should she put it? It looked like an imitation of Solder's meeting room. Although it was not satisfactory, Gu Mingming was not picky. She turned around and sat on the chair. Looking at Burke, she asked, "The people here don't look easy to get along with. Can you handle it?" Burke nodded and smiled. "With Kanwu and Qishuan's help, it won't be a big problem." Gu Mingming nodded and didn't say anything else. She always felt a little awkward when facing Burke. It was the kind of feeling where you knew he liked you, but he was trying his best to hold it in. You didn't even have the chance to reject him, and could only act dumb and not understand. Sigh, it was tiring to put on an act, but it was also tiring to be forced to cooperate. Seeing that Gu Mingming didn't say anything, Burke was clearly a little uneasy. He pretended to cough to suppress his palpitations. Then, with a flickering gaze, he said, "The kid who fought with Kanwu today was Leonard's younger brother, Victor." Gu Mingming chuckled and interrupted Burke. "Why? Are you afraid that I will hold a grudge against you?" Burke hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I promised after entering the tribe that I would do my best to protect them, so—" Gu Mingming waved her hands. "Don't worry, I have no intention of pursuing the matter. After all, he hit our little cub, and I have already hit him back. He scolded our child, and I knocked out one of his teeth. An eye for an eye, and we are even now." Borg nodded and said, "Then are you going to see Natalie?" Gu Mingming nodded. Then she stood up. "Just let these two rascals accompany me. You can go ahead with your work." Burke pursed his lips, then nodded in response. Kanwu led Gu Mingming and the rest towards Natalie's house, while Qishuan stayed behind. Only after Gu Mingming and the rest were far away did he nudge Burke with his elbow. "Before my mother came, you have been longing for her every day. Now that she's here, why aren't you even looking at her?" Borg smiled bitterly and said, "I'm afraid of seeing her smile at me. I can't have her, but I can't forget her." Qishuan smiled and shook his head. He patted Burke's shoulder and chased after Gu Mingming. Natalie's cave was located at the edge of the area. She claimed that it was more peaceful and undisturbed, but Gu Mingming knew that it was most likely because the old tribesmen of Zacharias were unhappy with Peter's status as a stray beast, so they were ostracized. Gu Mingming offered to fetch Natalie back to Saint Nazaire with her, but Natalie rejected. She said that she liked her current life. She could be with the person she loved, and could also help Elvis take care of Kanwu and Qishuan. This made her feel very satisfied. As for what others thought, she didn't really care. Gu Mingming admired Natalie's open-mindedness. Anyway, if it were her, she would definitely not be able to stand being pointed at like this every day. After visiting Natalie, Gu Mingming didn't intend to stay for long. She wanted to head back to Saint Nazaire. Chapter 1061. Kanwu and Qishuan came to send Gu Mingming off, but before they reached the separation zone, a tiger leaped out. If it was before she transmigrated, Gu Mingming would probably feel afraid, but now, "You are?" Gu Mingming looked at the tiger blocking her way and asked. The tiger shook its fur and transformed into a human. It was Victor, who had fought with Kanwu that day, the younger brother of Leonard's second-level beast. Gu Mingming raised her eyebrows and smiled mischievously. "Oh, you know I am leaving, so you are here to take revenge?" "No." Victor raised his head like a bandit. With one hand on his waist and the other pointing at Gu Mingming, he said, "I want to mate with you." Gu Mingming choked on her saliva. She laughed and said, "Child, did I beat you silly?" Victor's face was extremely red, but he still maintained his bandit demeanor. He pointed at Gu Mengmeng and said, "I am already an adult, and a second-level beast. I am not a child." Gu Mengmeng facepalmed. Looking at Victor's face that looked as young as Canwa's, she did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Little friend, are you even 3 years old?" Victor snorted proudly and said, "3 years old? Ha, female, are you looking down on me? Let me tell you, I am already 5 years old." Ha 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 ha. Burp. Gu Mingming's face turned red from his cuteness. She patted Elvis's shoulder and laughed so hard in his arms that she could not stand up straight. So she was being teased? And he was being teased by a 5-year-old kid? "You like me that much? You are actually so happy to hear that I want to mate with you. TSK. What a useless female." Victor said those words of disdain with an air of arrogance. But his little eyes kept glancing at Gu Mengmeng. Clearing his throat, he said, "No wonder, your partners are all so old. It is normal for them to like a young, strong and charming male like me. There is no time like the present. Let's mate today, then I will leave with you." Elvis and Lee's faces had already turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Within a radius of 500 miles, one could clearly feel the low pressure. Yet, Victor did not know whether to say that a newborn calf was not afraid of a tiger or, to be more direct, that he was a little slow and had no sense of danger at all. He even raised his little chin and said, "Your home or my home? As for mating, you probably won't be able to leave today. Let's change the date to tomorrow." Gu Mingming really did not want to laugh. She really wanted to treat this sudden confession seriously, but she could not control herself. Victor was completely immersed in his own imagination, because of Gu Mingming's incessant laughter. He cleared his throat and said in a domineering manner, "Why aren't you coming over? You only know how to laugh. Humph, I'll make you cry later." Gu Mingming laughed until her stomach hurt. She turned around and hugged Elvis's neck, laughing like a mantis shrimp. Elvis stood at the same spot with a black face. Leah, on the other hand, smiled lightly and elegantly. His lips curved like a crescent moon that could stir up people's hearts. His eyes sparkled with a smile. He took a step forward and said, "Victor, right? If you want to mate with a female, the first thing you have to do is to issue a challenge to her partner. Do you want to choose me or him?" Chapter 1062. The corners of Lee's lips were still hooked up, and the smile on his face was even more radiant and gentle. Those who knew him well knew that this meant that he was even angrier. Turning his head, he placed his index finger on his lips and looked at Gu Mengmeng seductively. "Mengmeng, can he mate with you without a challenge?" Gu Mengmeng was still laughing and could not straighten her back. She could only try her best to wave her hands and say with a voice that was shaking from laughter, "I'm not a pedophile, ha 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 ha, little brat or whatever. Ha 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 burp, I'm not interested at all, ha 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 ha. Female, your nickname is hypocritical." Victor pretended to be deep in thought. "Don't say one thing but mean another. You obviously like me." Gu Mingmeng hugged Elvis's neck and shook it. "Hurry up and leave. I'm going to die of laughter if you don't leave now." But Elvis stood at his original spot without moving an inch. His face darkened and he raised his eyebrows. Reject him immediately. Gu Mingmeng knew that the word love rival was equivalent to Elvis and Lee's minefield. Whoever stepped on it would be blown up. Today, not only did this little brat step on it, he even did a breaking dance in the minefield. Looking at Elvis's dark face, Gu Mingmeng did not dare to laugh anymore. She knew that he was really angry, and it was the kind of explosive rage. That's right. Even when Gu Mingmeng hugged Natalie's newborn little bun, Elvis asked her if she wanted brothers to share the same wife. Victor, this 5-year-old little kid, was indeed old enough in Elvis's eyes. Gu Mingmeng's smile was dispersed by Elvis's dark face. Gu Mingmeng hugged Elvis's neck and kissed his face. "Hubby, don't be angry." With that, Gu Mingmeng jumped down from Elvis's arms and walked straight to Victor. She leaned against Lee's chest and stood in a slanted position. She crossed her arms in front of her chest and raised her chin. "Hey, little brat. Liking me proves that you have good taste. But it's a pity that I don't like males who can be beaten down by me. Victor recalled how Gu Mingming had slapped off one of his teeth that day and blushed. He snorted and said, "But they can't beat you either." Gu Mingming's face turned red. Gu Mingming chuckled. "But I don't even know how to fight them." Then Victor wanted to say more, but after receiving Gu Mingming's meaningful glance, he forcefully swallowed his words. Clenching his fists, he said, "I got it. One day when I am strong enough, I will come and find you again. At that time, I will definitely be able to defeat you, and then you will no longer be able to reject my mating request." Gu Mingming chuckled. "Yeah, I'll wait and see." After saying that, Victor turned around and left. He walked faster and faster until he was almost running. The first confession in his life ended just like that. Victor was very upset. That day when Gu Mingming stepped on him, he laid on the ground and looked at her. The sun was right above her head and her entire body seemed to be glowing. At that moment, Victor knew that the love at first sight he had in this lifetime was used up just like that. He hesitated for a few days. Every day, he would pretend to pass by Natalie's door by accident. He just wanted to look at her from afar. He did not know what he wanted to see her doing. He only knew that her existence itself made him extremely happy. Knowing that she was leaving today, he mustered his courage to block her path and confessed to her. It was not that she did not understand. Her smile had nothing to do with liking him. She was just laughing at him for overestimating himself. Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. Chapter 1063. How could he not feel the dangerous aura emanating from Elvis and Leah? He was just suppressing the urge to run and risking his life in exchange for a result. In the end, he understood Gu Mingming's gaze. She was saying, "Hurry up and leave, you will die if you don't." He might as well just die. Being saved by the female he liked in such a way, he might as well die in a mating battle. After Victor ran far away, he was stopped by someone. The people who stopped him were none other than Kanwu and Qixuan. Qixuan was just watching the show, leaning against a tree trunk without saying a word. He was here because his mother said, "Fighting a tiger is a brother. You cannot let your younger brother suffer." "Victor, I treat you as my opponent, but you actually want to be my daddy." Without a second word, Kanwu directly punched Victor's face. Victor was a second-level orc. It was easy for him to dodge Kanwu's attack. Dodging with a sidestep, he suppressed the frustration in his heart and said with the air of a senior, "Don't mess around, you can't beat me." Victor's pretentious words made Kanwu even angrier. Without a second word, he transformed into his original form and charged forward. The wolf and tiger fought into a ball, while Qixuan just held his forehead and watched. As long as his stupid brother did not suffer, he did not care about anything else. He was now thinking about more important things such as, if someone passed by, how should he pretend not to know the two beasts who were fighting so miserably? After letting Victor go, Gu Mingming turned around and met Li's long and narrow eyes. His slender and bony fingers hooked Gu Mingming's chin lightly, and with a cold smile in his eyes he said, "You promise me that if there's a male you like, you will tell me in advance and allow me to eliminate him." Gu Mingming laughed dryly. "Yeah, if there is really someone I like, I will definitely tell you in advance." Leah narrowed his eyes. "Gu Mingming, you lied to me? MMM?" Gu Mingming shook her head and denied. No, how would I dare? But you were clearly letting him go on purpose just now." Leah inched closer and an oppressive aura enveloped Gu Mingming tightly. "I saw the way you winked at him." Elvis walked forward and stood shoulder to shoulder with Leah. He did not say a word and just frowned and pursed his lips. He looked at Gu Mingming quietly with a pained and speechless expression. He was the first partner, so he couldn't be like Leia and say whatever she wanted. But only the heavens knew that he was so jealous that he wanted to slap that arrogant brat into meat paste. He wanted to lock Gu Mingming fiercely in his arms and question her brazenly like Leah why she smiled at that fellow. He wanted to loudly order her not to give anyone else a chance. But after the words rolled around in his throat, what came out was, "If you like tigers, you might as well consider Oriton. At least you're stronger than him, And you're not as annoying. Leah originally thought that Elvis would at least stand on his side at this moment. But the moment Elvis said that, Leah exploded instantly. How dare you? If you dare to consider Oriton, I will slaughter him and stew him with potatoes the moment I return to Saint Nazaire. Gu Mengmeng walked past Leah and her eyes were instantly filled with tears. She looked up at Elvis. Are you serious? You want me to accept Oriton? Chapter 1064. Elvis, you have no conscience. Gu Mengmeng said as she punched Elvis's chest. She did not use much strength, and it was light as a feather. After a few punches, she pounced into Elvis's arms and sobbed. You can't wait to push me to someone else? Are you sick of me now? You don't like me anymore, right? Sobs, sobs, sobs. Elvis, you have a change of heart, haven't you? He was beaten and misunderstood, but he was not angry. She behaved like a child in his arms. She clearly knew that he could not do anything to her tears, but she still squeezed out a few drops of tears to fake her tears and force him to give in. The heaviness in his heart suddenly lessened. Not because of anything else, but because at this moment, she was in his arms. Heaving a sigh of relief, Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng in his arms and said, My heart hasn't changed. Can I dig it out for you to see? Gu Mengmeng blinked and shook her head, saying, I won't allow you to hurt my husband. Elvis smiled bitterly and tapped Gu Mengmeng's little nose, saying, I can't hurt your husband's heart. The only one who can make his heart ache is you. Gu Mengmeng wiped her tears and softened her voice, saying, I won't do anything to make my husband's heart ache. When you look at other males, your heart hurts. When you smile at other males, it hurts too. You have to accept other males. Just thinking about it makes you feel so much pain that you wish you were dead. Elvis said. Gu Mengmeng's little hand gently touched Elvis's chest. Her soft fingers had a gentle power that slowly seeped into Elvis's chest, as if it was really comforting the pain in his heart. Pouting, Gu Mengmeng said, I won't smile anymore. I won't smile in front of others anymore. Don't hurt. No. Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's brows and said, You still have to smile, because I will hurt if you smile, but if you don't smile, I will die. He did not forget how depressed Gu Mengmeng was when Snake just died, and how torturous his life was when she did not smile. But you can only stay in my arms. This was his final bottom line. He could not back down. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and kissed his lips back. Silly hubby, I have nowhere else to go other than in your arms. Elvis's heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat. Nowhere to go? How could this be? She was so beautiful, so dazzling, someone that the whole world desired. Everyone wanted to be her home. As for her, it wasn't that she didn't have a choice. She just said that she had to have him. The gloominess in Elvis's heart completely dissipated. He pinched Gu Mengmeng's little face and said, All right. If you have somewhere else to go in the future, I might consider tearing this world apart, so that you have nowhere to go except for my embrace. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and kissed Elvis on the cheek. Yeah, your title as the leader of the Husky Demolition Team is not just for show. I believe in your professional abilities. He did not know what nonsense she was spouting, but just looking at her smile, he could not help but laugh along with her. Chapter 1065. Lee's heart skipped a beat. He was excited at first, but then stopped abruptly. He frowned and took a step back. His gaze was so deep that he could not even maintain his smile. He shook his head firmly and said, No, don't mention this again in the future. Lee's reaction. Gu Mengmeng was extremely confused. She was very sure of Lee's feelings towards her, and was very confident. But why? Gu Mengmeng did not understand. Didn't the males in the beast world yearn for offspring? Why was this fox in her family so resistant? Gu Mengmeng herself did not have the habit of giving birth, but she had always thought that since she gave birth to a litter of wolf pups for Elvis, she should at least give birth to a litter for Leah to be fair. But he actually rejected her so righteously. This suddenly made Gu Mengmeng feel a little uncomfortable. She could not describe it, but it felt weird. Leah turned his head and avoided Gu Mengmeng's gaze for the first time. He only said, I don't like little cubs, they're too noisy and annoying. Gu Mingming narrowed her eyes and shook her head. When Hutta and his brothers were young, Elvis always threw them to you to raise. You treasured them so much that you never showed any impatience. Don't think that I don't know how much envy you have in your eyes every time you see the 4 little ones. Previously, I always had things to do, so I did not mention this. Now that I am free and am willing to give birth to your children, why do you look so unhappy? Why, are you afraid that I will use this to blackmail you? Leah took a deep breath and said, Anyway, I'm not giving birth. You. Gu Mingming suddenly felt speechless. There was no reason, only a stance. Not giving birth meant not giving birth. Gu Mingming suddenly laughed. She looked up at Leah in a provocative manner and said, If you have the ability, then don't touch me. What she meant was that unless you become a monk for your entire life, I have the final say on whether you give birth or not. Leah made a prompt decision and replied in a righteous manner, I don't have the ability. Gu Mingming was amused by Li's strong and cowardly attitude. She did not know what to say to him. Leah did not give Gu Mingming time to think and continued. Just like before, just place it outside or somewhere else. As long as it is not placed there, you will not get pregnant. When Leah said that, Gu Mingming suddenly realized something. After giving birth to Hutta and his brothers, other than the time she mated with Leah and Elvis did not seem to have planted their seeds in her body again. Glancing at Leah and then at Elvis, Gu Mingming frowned, realizing that things were not so simple. Did you two discuss this beforehand? Gu Mingming asked. Elvis did not avoid it and just nodded his head. Yes, we've discussed it. We already have 4 sons in our family, and all of them have lived to adulthood. This is enough. So what Leah and I mean is that we won't let you get pregnant again. Why? Gu Mingming was really speechless. I like children, furry and cute. Chapter 1066. Gu Mingming decided not to walk anymore. She took 2 steps back and stood opposite Elvis and Leah. She squinted her eyes and sized them up. After a moment of silence, she opened her mouth and said, I have Wang Xiaoxin's psychological knowledge now. If I want to, I can trick you two into revealing the truth step by step. But I don't want to do that. So you better tell me immediately, directly and clearly, what is the situation? Leah was unwilling to say, because he was afraid that Gu Mingming would feel burdened and guilty. Because she had 2 partners, she was always careful in relationships. She did not dare to say things that she could ask for in a righteous manner. Just like Victor's confession of love just now, no matter whether Gu Mingming intended to accept Victor or not, his and Elvis's actions were inappropriate in the beast world. She had the right to be angry and could even abandon him and Elvis because of this, but she anxiously coaxed them instead. This made them even more insatiable, and even started to blur the boundaries of the dominant position in the family. But Leah did not forget that he was the one who forced Gu Mingming to such a lowly position. If he had accepted Gu Mingming with a clear conscience back then, and did not create those troubles, then he and Gu Mingming would be living like deities now. Or when she and Elvis had clearly rejected him after mating, he should have let go of her easily. Even if he was secretly in pain, he should not pester her, disturb her or force her. If that was the case, she would definitely be living in a righteous manner. But greed was human nature, and it was engraved in their bones. When they could not get it, they wanted to get more. When they got more, they wanted to monopolize it. Now that monopolization was impossible, then, they were like wild beasts protecting their food, baring their teeth to warn and threaten their own kind that tried to approach them. If it was in other families, they would be despised and abandoned males. But facing their possessiveness, Gu Mingming tolerated it with a guilty heart. Leah sometimes felt very conflicted. He really did not want Gu Mingming to have other males, but he also hoped that Gu Mingming could be more righteous, even if she scolded him. So, when Gu Mingming asked him why he did not want to give birth to little foxes, he hesitated. Not willing? Ha! Every nerve and cell in his body was roaring. He wanted the child she bore for him. But Leah frowned and lowered his head. The previous messenger of the beast deity was best at reading people's minds. Up till now, a lot of important information had been lost from the inheritance, But with just an incomplete copy, the Snow Fox clan could still control the entire beast world. In this generation, both Cole and Leah were the cream of the crop. It was just that one had become an ambitious person while the other had become a hermit. Coincidentally, both of them had their eyes on the same woman. Leah did not want Gu Mingming to see any flaws from his face, so all he could do was to lower his head and avoid talking. Elvis's thoughts were not as complicated as Lee's. He only knew that he had promised Gu Mingming not to hide anything from her, and he had to keep his word. Chapter 1067. Gu Mingming was taken aback and did not know whether to laugh or cry. The things that she could not understand, no matter how hard she thought about it, became clear in an instant. It was not that complicated at first, but she was the one who worried for nothing. So you guys did not let me get pregnant because you felt sorry for me? Gu Mingming chuckled. She laughed at herself for forgetting the pain after the scar healed. She was in so much pain when she gave birth to Huda and his brothers, but now, she only remembered that it was quite painful. But how painful was it? She could not remember at all. Perhaps when she was giving birth to the 4 brothers, she had really shouted that she did not want to give birth anymore. But now, she could not remember it anymore. Gu Mingming shook her head and opened her arms to hug him. Elvis pulled her into his arms and rubbed his face against her neck intimately, satisfied with the fullness of having her in his arms. Gu Mingming was such an existence to Elvis. She did not need to do anything, but her presence could fill his heart to the brim. Gu Mingming pulled Li's hand and smiled gently. I have the powers of a beast king now. Even if you cut me open and dissect me, I might not die. Giving birth to a child is a piece of cake. Leah felt very helpless. He had struggled for a long time and did not want to say it, but Elvis had said it out loud so easily. So he was the best candidate to be the first partner. As for himself, he might never be able to be as calm as he was in front of Gu Mingming. He was not afraid of Gu Mingming knowing anything. As for himself, no matter how hard he tried, some thoughts were stuck in his mouth. Pinching Gu Mingming's little hand, Leah chuckled. You won't die, but you will be in pain. Elvis and Leah had the same thoughts. They had both seen Gu Mingming giving birth with their own eyes. Even now, Elvis could still taste the blood in his mouth. It was as if a basin of rusty water had been poured into his windpipe. That feeling was unforgettable. Usually, when his Xiaoming's hand was pricked by a wooden thorn, he would feel as if his heart was being smashed by a stick. And that night, Gu Mingming's blood flowed like a river, and she was in so much pain that she wished she was dead. That scene had really shocked them. They knew that they did not have the courage to go through it again. If they saw Gu Mingming in so much pain again, they would probably go crazy. Gu Mingming's gaze reflected the sunlight and landed on Li's face. She smiled peacefully and said, But if I don't give birth to a nest of cubs for you, I will feel very regretful. She gave Elvis Huda and his brothers, and also gave Elvis the title and status of the first partner. But other than a mark on her ear, Leah had nothing else. Leah sighed. If the reason that Gu Mingming mentioned was about him, he could use a sentence that he had long prepared. I don't need cubs to brush her off. But she said she would regret it. She also wants a nest of their cubs, right? It wasn't all because of guilt and inferiority, but because she loved him. That was why she wanted a nest of their cubs. Gu Mingming, I don't want to see you bleed anymore, and I don't want to see you in pain anymore. Leah looked deeply at Gu Mingming and said. Gu Mingming patted Li's shoulder and said, It's all right, just don't guard the cave when I'm alive this time. Leah was speechless. Her solution was to keep him out of sight? Gu Mingming. Chapter 1068. Previously it was Elvis, this time it was her. She did not even change her lines. Even though he knew that she wanted to act, Leah was still willing to cooperate. If she wanted to hear it, he was willing to pour out his heartfelt words into her ears every day. There is a scar on my heart, where the sky once fell. If you cut open my chest, you will realize that the scar is very special. There are only 5 words: I don't love you anymore. Gu Mingming's heart shrank as if it was being scratched by a cat. She knew better than anyone else who said, "I don't love you anymore." Pursing her lips and not saying a word, Gu Mingming's eyes met Li's long and narrow pupils. She was sucked in by his deep love and could not move an inch. Leah went forward and kissed the tip of her brows lightly, whispering softly, "A body of pure white fur established my holy and noble childhood. Ha! I was once a child blessed by the gods. I stood at the most dazzling place under the sun and was worshipped by people. I also once fell into hell because of hatred, killed hundreds of demons, stepped on other people's bones to climb up, becoming the most evil existence in this world. However, from the moment I met you, I was empty." He placed Gu Mingming's little hand by his lips and kissed it gently, looking up at Gu Mingming, continuing, "That's right, I said I was empty. I emptied my body and emptied my heart. There is no good or evil, only you. In my name, I swear to the beast deity from today onwards, only you are my God, my life, my everything." Leah repeated the oath he made back then, still full of deep love. His long and narrow eyes were full of infatuation, gently but firmly entwined around Gu Mingming, not leaving a single gap. "If you are kind, I will redeem myself and become a Buddha. If you are evil, I will sacrifice myself and become a demon." Li's fingers hooked Gu Mingming's chin lightly, kissing her thin lips. The kiss was lingering but not deep, giving off a sense of beauty as if they were filming an idol drama. After a long while, Leah finally pulled away, looking at Gu Mingming with misty eyes, saying, "I will be wherever you are, regardless of good or evil, regardless of life or death. But you say, I don't love you like this. MMM. They were an old couple, right?" But Gu Mingming still blushed and her heart raced from Li's occasional teasing. That's true. This sentence, "Don't you love me anymore?" In the modern era, this was a golden phrase that could do anything. As long as this line was used, boys could only submit. Whether it was right or wrong, in front of this sentence, if you didn't want to make a mess, you could only admit defeat. Because once it rose to the value of "you don't love me, hee, it would be quite difficult to coax. Or, "You actually want to change girlfriends, so it doesn't matter." However, this did not work in the beast world. It's not that it won't work. The reverse will work as well. If a male asks a female, "Do you not love me anymore?" it was much more reasonable in the beast world. Gu Mingming facepalmed. She had to end her pretense even if she had to die. So he cleared his throat and forced himself to say awkwardly, "You used to love me very much. You agreed to everything I said. Now I'm just saying that I want to give birth to a nest of little foxes, but you're not willing. Clearly you don't love me anymore, so you think I'm troublesome." Leah chuckled and said, "Do you really want a nest of little foxes?" Gu Mingming nodded her head heavily, showing her determination. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.